It's a very interesting weekend. That's Luke. That's not me. Serge, what are you doing?
Oh, it's just backwards. It's backwards. I'm used to pushing that top corner. So
we're in a mobile studio setup in Austin, Texas, because we're here all week. We got a bunch of amazing guests, and we're doing a live show this Friday. But let's talk about news. That's what you're here for. It was a crazy weekend. Donald Trump tweeted just World War III. That's all he said. And then he gets a whole bunch of news written about him. And China says they're ready to fight. Oh boy. Pentagon leaked documents suggest Russia is actually winning, and surprise, surprise, they're lying to us, unless those leaked documents are actually just propaganda in and unto themselves. But you know what? I wanted to leave with a story that I think was kind of a white pill moment that would be inspiring for all of you, and that's Anheuser Busch has seen a multi-billion-dollar market cap drop-off. Since the start of this controversy, when they hired Dylan Mulvaney, reportedly sales are dropping, rumors are circulating that they're not selling product, videos are popping up all over the internet showing beer sections where the Budweiser and the Busch products are all still there and other companies are all sold out. This could all be propaganda too, but you know what? I want to at least believe that we can win if we organize. And you know what is also true? It's entirely possible the naysayers who are acting like this is not a big deal are actually the propagandists trying to say, stop doing what you're doing. When in reality, I look at the hard numbers. Since the start of this controversy, their stock is down, I think, around 5% for a multi-billion-dollar market cap drop. So we can organize, we can vote with our dollars, and we can win. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we get into all of that, let me try and slide forward in this awkward situation. And everyone head over to timcast.com. Become a member by clicking Join Us. To join our members, we're doing what we can here with this mobile studio, so thanks for hanging out. But click Join Us, become a member, support our work as a member. You'll get access to our members-only uncensored show. We're going to have one of those up tonight at about 10 p.m. Eastern time. And you can also join our Discord server where you can chat with a whole bunch of like-minded people. And after you've been a member for 6 months, you get access to the VIP chat and voice chat, where you can submit questions, actually call in and ask us questions. And you can jump the line if you want by signing up for $25 per month. And then, of course, we have the Elite Club, which is more community building. And we got a bunch of really cool programs. Every Friday, we're going to start shouting out members, projects, companies, or otherwise, because y'all are actually the people sponsoring the show already. So Friday will be your day. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this and a whole lot more is Peter Boghossian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Should I say Dr. Peter Boghossian?
No, Peter's fine.
But you're a doctor, right?
Correct, but Peter's more.
Peter's fine?
But, so don't listen to anybody because they're a doctor. In fact, it probably means if they got their degree recently, it's probably a bad thing. It probably is an indication that they're brainwashed.
But for people who aren't familiar, aside from a whole bunch of accolades, I think a lot of people might know you from the Sokol Squared hoax, where you, Helen Pluckrose, and James Lindsay created these. What would you call them? Woke.
Fake papers, woke papers that we played on the moral prejudices of journals and showed that the bodies of literature were corrupt. The bodies of literature, by the way, that we're forming public policies upon.
So simply put, you, in one instance, took a chapter from Mein Kampf,
correct,
and changed it to feminist talking points.
Correct.
Like you changed key pronouns to feminist feminist nouns, and they accepted it.
Yeah, we had two papers. One, we just changed Jews for white men, and the other one we
that's brutal.
And thank you. And the other one we rewrote with that in mind. So it's good to be here with everybody.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot to talk about considering what's going on with the Anheuser Busch thing, wokeness. Now there's talk about the Mario movie making a bunch of money, and so we'll talk about that stuff. And then, of course, Riley Gaines is a big story.
She University of San Francisco. That's a big story in my world.
I think it's massive. She got attacked. She was chased by a mob and then locked in a room for, 3 hours? So we'll get into all that stuff.
We'll get into it. And what's really fascinating to me, that's interesting, but the university's response is what we should drill down on.
Right on, absolutely. And Luke Rutkowski's here.
Well, yeehaw. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings.
Yell.
It's good to be back. The dollar is collapsing. The petrodollar is being replaced. The proxy war is expanding. Everything we told you was going to happen is happening, but it's happening on a bigger scale, so things are going to get a lot crazier. It's good to be back. Since we're in Texas, I decided to wear my Ron Paul If I Told You So Was a Person shirt, which you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Good to see you guys. It's been a while.
It's the most cowboy you've ever been, man.
I know.
I love it.
You got to fit in.
Yeehaw. Hey, Peter, what's your doctorate in?
Education.
Nice. Well, hey, I'm Ian Crossland. Let's get going.
Let's jump to this this first story right here.
Yeah, we got Serge. He's not on the mic. He's not on the camera, so I got
Yeah, no camera,
in the
guys.
distance.
All right, let's jump to this first story. We got this from the Daily Mail. Bud Light's VP says she wanted to update the fratty and out-of-touch branding with inclusivity days before Dylan Mulvaney's controversial partnership with beer was unveiled. And I'm gonna humble brag here. I called this in my conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy when I said what's likely happening is these millennial women are getting promoted in these companies. They hold these views. Then they start adopting these things. It is not like some 56-year-old Gen Xer or whatever running the company said, this is what we got to do. It is a young millennial person taking these jobs. But of course, what everyone really came here for is this tweet from DC Drano. He says, on March 31st, Anheuser Busch had a $132.38 billion market cap. As of today, it is now $128.4 billion. You know what that means? The woke Bud Light campaign has already shaved off nearly $4 billion in company value. Don't let Democrats lie to you. Conservative boycotts work. So a white pill moment, I suppose. Boycotts do work. Voting with your dollar does work. And this one is the easiest thing for people to do. Because everyone's always like, what can I do? I don't want to risk my family. I don't know how I can affect the electoral system. Who do I vote for? I can only vote every few years. This one's really easy. Don't buy Bush. Don't buy Anheuser products. Don't buy Budweiser. Don't buy Bud Light. And if this can be kept up,
that's the thing right there, right? So it's only worked if it can be kept up.
So it's got to be kept up, and it's got to be sustained to a certain degree where you need one thing to happen. Budweiser apologizes.
Yeah, that's it. And until the apology, don't buy Bud.
And
yeah, right. When they do apologize, I say buy a bunch.
Yeah.
What market forecasters and everybody needs to see is that when they did this campaign with Dylan Mulvaney, their stock drops, their sales drop, and then as soon as they apologized, goes right back up.
Yeah.
So I should go up even higher. If they apologize, I'll buy a ton of beer. I'm not going to drink it, but I'll buy it.
I think the other thing to think about is exactly what you said. What can you do? And it's not that you can give money to or cause you like what you can, but you can stop giving your money things. For example, you can stop giving your money to your alma mater. We have a project that we sponsored called Don't Donate, where we ask people the simplest ask in the world. Don't donate to your alma mater. It's not the same place. You're pushing woke ideology. You're literally giving it a kind of financial oxygen. Same thing with Bud Light. Don't buy it.
Any companies that you've been donating to or working with, check and see if they've been bought lately, because there's been a lot of corporate conglomeration in the last decade.
Right, like Anheuser Busch merged with some
InBev, yeah.
Yeah, and so now there's a bunch of other brands. Anheuser Busch actually really, really big. Here's my favorite. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted out a picture of buying Coors, and then some leftist posted Coors woke campaign as well.
Right.
But here's my thing. I don't care. I do not care if Bud Light makes a Pride can. That's not what I care about. What I care about is Dylan Mulvaney represents the algorithmic crisis that is causing teenage depression, that is expanding and creating wokeness, in my view, and then they reward it. Not only that, but TikTok, I believe, is likely a Trojan horse. The story goes that in China they get more controlled and academic content, and in the US it's all weird woke stuff and people who think they're frogs, frog self-pronouns and stuff like that. Very horrible ideas that are corrupting people's brains, and that Dylan Mulvaney is a perfect example of what those algorithms do. So when Bud Light dumps money into that, promotes it, they're actually making the algorithmic crisis substantially worse. So my thing is like, get away from it. Don't fund that stuff.
There's a lot of interesting things at play here, because there's also the ESG score. There's also fifth generational warfare. We could go deep down the rabbit hole when it comes to explaining what's really going on here. But on a simple level, I think if we explain what just happened, it was a company trying to sell beer to, quote, what they deemed a younger audience, but mainly a part of just preaching to a woke religion that they were trying to serve here. And it's pretty clear that they kind of forgot about their customer base, and a lot of people are discussing, hey, what beer should I drink here? What's next beer? What's next beer I should move on? I think it's also important to note here that even woke people won't be buying Bud Light, because it's like, you think we're that simple where you could just put some person on there and that's going to make me want to buy your fluoride-filled piss drink? No, thank you. I don't want that bull crap anywhere near me. It's an endocrine disruptor. And I think a lot of people, the discussion that I would love to have here, to have a deeper discussion, maybe instead of replacing your beer, maybe let's stay away from the moob creating endocrine disruptors that do, of course, have a very negative effect on you. And I think this is a perfect time to start that conversation, being like, hey, don't support this bull crap because it's bad for you.
I don't drink.
Yeah, and how evil do you have to be? Because the video of this VP came out and she's talking about, we have to appeal to a younger audience. She has the rainbows behind her. What kind of evil person do you have to be to say, we're going to get young kids hooked on beer and alcohol? You are a low vibrational, bad human being when you're such a corporatist where you're like, we got to get all these people hooked on alcohol. But you're a bad person. I'm just sorry.
Young drinkers is how
young
she phrased it.
drinkers.
Yes.
That's horrible. Young drinkers, that's what she said. Peppered with woke language throughout.
And so here's the thing. They're targeting college kids. They're targeting people who are under the legal age to drink. Now, that being said, I think 18 should be the legal drinking age. I think it's ridiculous they raised it to 21 in the first place. And I actually think beer is actually pretty great. I don't drink it. The problem is abuse, not having some. I might have a beer once or twice a year, to be completely honest, depending on the situation, but it's not going to be Bud Light because Bud Light's just, it's like not really beer. It's
Newcastle, if you're going to try
Something good.
There was even a new
Guinness.
medical study that came out showing that even moderate drinking has very negative cognitive effects for your brain and ages your brain and stops blood flow to your brain. The moop things is real. There's a reason Bill Gates has moops, okay? And it's not accidental. It's not a coincidence.
You're saying he drinks too much beer?
That and of course all the horrible pesticides and byproducts. There's also a lot of glyphosate in, of course, the beer as well. It's good to be back to get this off of my chest here. I feel awesome to finally be able to explain a lot of this stuff because at the end of the day here, it is a corporation trying to sell a product that does have a lot of negative consequences for people. That should be the discussion here, I think.
So let me ask you this question. I maybe we can all agree. I think everybody would be better off if they just drank water.
I agree.
Holler back at you, son. I have some water right here.
Plastic water.
I'm on the road.
Come on.
You know that we actually do have glasses over there.
Sorry to interrupt.
I didn't find them, so I'm using a
measuring.
See, that's why I like
cup.
you, Peter.
Hey, it holds water. It gets the job done.
It's good
No,
enough.
here's an important thing to consider too for this stuff. The reason why I really am energized, enervated by the story is Bud Light deserves to lose money. Not just because we disagree with the ideological position of, say, TikTok, Dylan Mulvaney, or whatever. Bud Light deserves to lose money because this has to be one of the stupidest business decisions, irrespective of wokeness, in that you've got people from the ages of 21 to, on average, 79.3 years old. Your market share is 50 plus years, 57, 58 years. And what they've done is said, we've got to get rid of the frat culture and appeal to a younger audience. So they're targeting people from the ages of 21 to 25 in an effort to sell beer at the expense of 25 to 80.
And they've got to understand the amount of financial duress people are under that are from the age of 21 to 25. Young people is a constant theme on this show and others that people don't have money. They don't have direction. The school is too expensive. They're in debt.
Well, they do have money, but the money's being devalued. The money's being devalued.
But real quick, Ian, that actually makes them smart.
But they're targeting a segment of population that doesn't have money. That's the weird thing.
That's actually a good point. It's funny because they say when times are good, people drink. When times are bad, people drink
more.
And so maybe they're hoping maybe the real gambit here is these young people are depressed and listless. They're gonna get drunk. Wow.
Do you think what better way to forget your sorrows? What better way to live in your pod and eat the bugs? And of course, if you remember during COVID, the alcohol industry skyrocketed. They were allowed to have liquor stores that were allowed to be open. Meanwhile, the mom and pop stores weren't allowed to be open as well. So a lot of people drank a lot. A lot of people who are depressed drink a lot, and it makes a lot of emotional issues, a lot of emotional problems that much worse for a lot of individuals. So when you're going after a key demographic that still has a part of their brain developing, and you're saying, let's put booze in there. Come on, let's call it out for what it is here. To me, a lot of this is just absolutely disingenuous. I don't care. I think there was just someone at Bud Light saying we just need to make money. Let's just make as much money as we can. We don't care how we're going to do it. And then they bring in the woke religion as a part to be subservient to that.
See, I was talking to Vivek Ramaswamy last week, and this is where the conversation was going. And I said I disagree. What I think we're seeing at these companies, they hire a 24-year-old woman 10 years ago. She's a marketing intern. 2 years later, she's full-time staff now. She's a marketing producer or something like that. It's now been a decade. Her boss, who's
VP.
56, goes, well, what's her name? Do you know her name, Luke?
Alyssa.
Alyssa.
So here's what I'm imagining. He goes, Alyssa, it's about time I retired. I'm about 60 some odd years old. Let's say he's 50. Let's say he's in his 60s. And he's like, I think this is a job you can handle. And she's like, thank you so much. And then as soon as she walks outside, she goes, let's sponsor Dylan Mulvaney. And that's what happened. There are these people on the left that are saying they did all this market research. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
The people who are woke, who are ideologically driven, are not thinking logically about numbers.
Yeah.
They're thinking, we are now wearing the institution like a skin suit. Let's advance our cause.
I'm automatically thinking of that Vice news skit where they were taking adult
Toy and throwing
toys
it at the wall.
and throwing them at the wall randomly. That could be it too. You never know.
This woman
Sorry,
clearly
go
is woke, though. We saw this video where
She has
like,
pronouns in her bio. She's peppering her language. And I think that the key thing is what you said, Tim. It's that these people have intentionally trained themselves not to think. All of their information comes through a funnel to promote wokeness. But I guess what I was thinking about is, have you heard the expression, there's no such thing as bad press?
Yeah.
Yep.
This seems to belie that. There is bad press, and bad press can harm the...
But I think the phrase, there's no such thing as bad press, typically applies to an individual, right? I think someone like Ben Shapiro has actually greatly benefited from bad press. But to be fair, there's a double-edged sword that comes along with it, in that the bad press for an individual and for a commentator, they become more prominent. For someone like Ben Shapiro, or for any of us here, is that the more they talk about you, the more you become the subject and the figure to be talked about. If you are Anheuser Busch, you are on top of the mountain. There's nowhere else to go. The only press they're going to get is going to be negative for their stock. So bad press, bad for your stock. Individuals, we don't have stock, so the more attention we get, the more we can capitalize on it. For Bud Light, I'll put it this way. They've got an opportunity when they bring politics into beer, which seems to make no sense in my opinion for the most part. But this opportunity is, can we capture a large portion of one demographic? Well, my attitude is, how about you don't do any of it and you try and just capture as much of the entirety of people who drink beer by being a neutral beer company. As soon as they enter the political fray, they segment off a large portion of their audience. If you are a political commentator or a celebrity, you're not going to get a market cap that is the entire population of the planet. Now imagine a company like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's market cap literally is every human on Earth, except for maybe like North Sentinel Island where they've never made contact with people or something like that. So they have no incentive whatsoever to be divisive. And bad press is bad if your market cap is everyone. Coke, Bud Light, whoever else, they want everyone on the planet drinking their product. Well, go to war with one half of them and you'll only lose customers. If you're a commentator and you're a celebrity, so who cares if 80% of the world hates you? 20% likes you and you'll make money off them. So bad all around for Bud Light.
You
Good
said
for us, I guess.
Something, Peter, I think you were alluding that they didn't seem to know what they were doing. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah, what I think is happening is that these folks, and Alyssa has pronouns in her bio, and she peppers all of her language. And I would encourage people to watch those videos where she's explaining why she did this. They're not capable of independent, rational thought. They view themselves as white knights who promote the ideology. This is a way to promote her moral values. And within that, then she convinces herself that, well, we'll increase market share, we'll increase sales, but it's just not true.
I think it's the word inclusivity. Do we have that video of Alyssa explaining
that video is wonderful.
It's so great.
Yeah.
I don't know
well
why she
worth
made
watching.
it. It's incredible that she incriminated herself like that, but I guess everyone knew who she was on the team anyway. And the way she says, we're looking to do, I think it's the word inclusivity, something, and inclusive, something. And you're like, why'd she use the word inclusivity twice? She doesn't know what it means. That's why.
Well, that video that you mentioned was from March 30th, and ever since I haven't seen much kind of any kind of words from Bud Light after this.
Oh, that's from... Okay,
so that's from an earlier video where she was explaining what she was doing.
And I want to underscore something Tim said, that if you really want to show that you can change and make a difference, it has to be sustainable. Like, you have to literally continue to not buy the product until they apologize. And if you don't do that, then you're actually working against your interest, because companies are going to keep doing this.
I'll be honest, I don't think an apology is enough. For me, they'll just issue some crap that they don't believe and then try and...
The apology is everything. Yeah. The apology is everything.
I feel like making them go bankrupt
because it's
is
a
everything.
signal. It's a costly signal.
It means they will, if they issue an apology, that means Anheuser Busch said the risk to our business from the far left cult is less than the risk to our business from pissing off.
I see. So you're not
people.
trying. That's a good point. You're not trying to destroy the company. You're trying to change the direction the company takes.
Yes.
And we're not going to be held hostage to woke maniacs. We're just not going to be held hostage to these people.
Let me pull up this video here. We had this video from Chuck Colesto. It's a video of a guy. Let's see if is the audio going to play. So I don't know. Is the audio coming through?
Yep. Give it to me, Chuck.
Nope, audio's not coming through at all. But I'll just explain for you, simply put.
No, it's just not coming through for you.
I'm not seeing it on the...
I'm not hearing it.
I'm not hearing it either.
And it's not coming up on the thing. Yeah, so the audio is not playing, but that's fine, that's fine. This is a video of a guy who's a distributor. He works for an affiliate company, he says. I want to make sure I clarify that. He's got Bud Light on his arm at a liquor store. Now, this could be fake. You know, I just want to make sure that's clear, like, hard to verify, just a random video on the internet. But this is just one of several videos I've seen of people in similar situations pointing out that the shelves are loaded with Anheuser Busch products. And this guy says that he works for an affiliate company that only sells Bud and Bud Light products, and he's never seen sales this low, which worries him because if we don't sell these products, I don't feed my family. Like, this is my company, like, that I work for. We got to do this.
Yeah.
And he goes, so thanks, Anheuser Busch. Maybe I won't feed my family. I definitely think it's a little hyperbolic, but we've seen a bunch of these videos where people are reporting on the ground that sales are dropping. We've seen the stock dropping, and I think it lines up. And I think the left operates on lies and manipulation. I don't want to say all the left. I want to say the woke cult operates on lies and manipulation. And so they will twist anything as a victory, and they will twist anything you say into something negative. So here's what I have to say. I'll be fully honest. Maybe these videos are being faked by people who want to make it seem like we're winning, but I'll just take it. I look at their stock prices. Their stock prices are way down.
Yeah, so that's an independent metric,
Right.
whereas the videos are not.
But you know what? If the stocks are dropping and there's rumors of sale decline, and then I see these videos, I'm more inclined to believe that these and other videos I've seen are probably true. Yeah. There's one video where it's just a guy standing in a supermarket and he just pans left and right, and then you see all the beer's gone. And then he pans over and all the Budweiser products still there.
Look, we're in Austin. Why don't, at some point, I'll go to a supermarket center. Why don't we just go to a supermarket and do it ourselves?
Yeah, because I wonder how pronounced it is in a place like Austin.
Yeah.
Right? So here's the other thing we're hearing. The guitar player from The Offspring, he countered Kid Rock, and he was like, we're going to stock all of our shows with Anheuser Busch products to counter the bigots. It's like, okay, I mean, it is a bit silly, I suppose, but hey, it's a culture war for a reason.
I mean,
right?
using a guy that claims to be transgender to sell your beer is a bit bigoted. They're like using Dylan Mulvaney. It's not like...
It's even worse to use a guy to market tampons and sports bras.
Yeah, the
it's just
sports bra thing was kind
of... It's like using his identity. It's so just underhanded dirtiness to sell product.
Here's what I think. I'll tell you what I think. TikTok, my personal opinion is it's not real. My opinion has never been that, my opinion has always been that it's not real. And my opinion, TikTok, ByteDance, whatever. So I said this a few years ago. I explained how a new social media platform can emerge. And I've actually talked to tech companies about this. Here's what you do. Create an app, then market that app on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever to teenagers. Say, the new cool app to do this thing. Hire a bunch of young people to do a fun thing like, singing songs. Then when they download it and they make a post, give them 150 likes. Give them 50 new followers. They're going to respond to that positive reinforcement, and they're going to be like, whoa, I got a bunch of new followers. You give them fake followers, and eventually all of these kids are going to be like, you still use Instagram? That's so lame. Why aren't you using, Glabo? And they're going to be like, what's that? You're not on Glabo, dude? I got 5,000 followers. And then the friend is going to go, you have 5,000 followers? Yeah, I'm a big deal. They're going to feel real good, even though there's no real humans behind that number. But that will convince their friends to get on the platform as well.
You know what's terrifying to me about that, by the way? What's terrifying to me is I have thought over the last few years that so many things were conspiracy theories that turned out to be not conspiracy theories. And now,
like all of them?
and now I'm listening. Well, that's what happens when you're looking at it from the other end of history. And now I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, that's completely feasible.
Yeah, especially with quantum computing on the horizon and artificial intelligence, you could have 100,000 followers that aren't real people that are commenting actual things in response to what you're doing.
Yeah, the governments have been doing this for a very long time. I think the Israeli government was the first one to come out about it publicly, where they described whole entire factories of people that were online digital troll armies that were specifically making sure that they were engaging in debate and conversations that made the Israeli government look good. Joe Biden just announced a whole campaign for online influencers that are going to be his influence army for the next 2024 presidential election. So obviously they're paying for PR using our tax dollars to have people shill for them who are just saying and doing anything for a buck.
Dylan Mulvaney was one of them.
Yes.
Wait, wait, hold on. Joe Biden, I saw this story. This is the 50 Cent Army for the Democrats.
Yes.
And Dylan Mulvaney is going to be...
I don't know if he's a part of the 50 Cent Army.
He was. He went to the White House.
But
as we know, like Hillary Clinton hired influencers, high-level influencers, even someone, I don't think we
Casey
should even...
Neistat?
Yes, to specifically make endorsement
Hold on. Was he hired by them?
There's different ways that, of course, they conduct their businesses through PACs and different organizations. So we have to be careful with exactly how we're wording here. But I think it's fair to say that money exchanged hands for the support of this particular candidate. That money coming from, of course, either super PACs or connections, organizations.
That's a bold accusation.
But when you have an influencer
wait. In terms of Casey Neistat, this one matters. He's the biggest vlogger. He's not really doing as much content as he used to. He came out and endorsed Hillary Clinton. It is my personal opinion that likely constituted a monetary exchange from someone or somehow, because I don't see how you get a dude who like films drones and longboarding and talking about filmmaking all of a sudden coming out and endorsing a politician in an election. But it's entirely possible he's just going along with the crowd, and that's why it ended up happening.
It might be connected or not connected, but how much was the CNN deal? That's also another one that also has a lot of people looking at the situation like, how much money did he make? What did he do? That app
whole thing failed. Wow.
The whole thing didn't do anything. So there's multiple ways of having people shill. But for the Biden administration to openly kind of discuss how they're going to be taking and giving money to people to shill for them, I mean, that's going to make everyone question, like, wait, are you really in support of this person? Or are you just being paid to support this person?
Look, I when I go out into normal places, if you're in DC, you're going to be around a bunch of people who are hyper political. But when I go out to the movies, when I go to pool halls, when I go to the poker club or whatever, I have not met a single person who is pro-Biden, like pro-Democrat. I don't see them anywhere. And, of course, if I say something like that, I'm going to get a bunch of leftists being like, haha, go touch grass. But like, dude, I've not seen it anywhere. I go to, we've been going to Maryland Live, a casino, playing Hold'em 1-2, super inexpensive for those that are considering playing. It's like you pay $2 to play a hand, so it can be played cheaply. And out of all the tables I've played at, and this is north of DC, south of Baltimore, I have not met a single pro-Democrat person in this major urban center where it's just regular people hanging out from various ages, young guys to older guys.
Well, how do you know? Does it come up at the tables?
Absolutely. Every time, without fail, someone mentions the cost of the game or the economy, and then immediately, oh, Joe Biden, he's bad. Now, don't get me wrong. I met a guy who said he thought the J6ers should be executed, and he hated Donald Trump. That I get, but I've not met anybody who was like, I like this guy. Now, that could be these people voted for him, and now they really, really do regret it.
Is it a blue area?
It's the bluest as blue can be. I mean, it's we're talking about Baltimore and Maryland, and this casino is I think it's, I don't know what city it's in, but it's 30 minutes from downtown Baltimore. It's like half an hour from DC or Baltimore, right in between. So everybody who's going there, it's people from the cities who are trying to play a game or whatever. So I kind of feel like at this point, the reasoning for why Biden's building a 50 Cent army is fairly obvious. I do not see them being able to pull off another victory. I'm seeing all these polls where they're like, Biden is beating Trump. In these states, Biden is beating Trump. And I'm like, don't care, don't believe it. I mean, look, ballot harvesting may come to save the day, but it's clear that they're going to be ramping up what I would describe as unethical and malicious tactics in the election. And the idea of a Democrat, so for those who don't know, the 50 Cent Army, what is it, in China? Anybody who posts on social media pro CCP propaganda, they get paid 50 cents every time they do or something like that. So this is basically what we're going to start seeing with Democrats. And that's probably what's already happening. So when we're talking about Anheuser Busch, we're talking about Dylan Mulvaney and the algorithmic manipulation. That is what the Democrats are riding that wave.
Yeah, the thing you didn't say, which I think needs to be said, which speaks to your point, is what this does to the integrity of the system overall. This is what causes a legitimacy crisis, right? So we don't trust our institutions. We now think the people we like on social media, they're being paid certain. I've never taken a single penny for anything, my Twitter feed, anything. I think that compromises the integrity. But when you do that in a political level, it's terrifying to me.
Yeah,
terrifying.
Absolutely, and especially when you connect it to something like the social credit score, which they do in China. Because if you complain about the government in China, you of course get downranked with your social credit score. You can't get high-speed internet. You can't travel on airplanes. You can't buy first-class tickets on trains.
It's coming.
And that's being tested in China, which they're trying to roll out and bring out here in the United States, as there's already a corporate social credit score that no one really likes to talk about.
Yeah, and
it's not a government institution, but the corporate social credit score on everyone here already exists. There is an ESG score with the corporations, but there's even another one with each citizen and civilian, with all of your private records, especially from social media, being compiled together and then soon going to be used against you later.
What's that called? Is that a program they're doing?
No, there's many different corporations keeping private records, and they sell all these private records about you and your itinerary and what you do and what you like, what you dislike, your views, your opinions. All of that is databased. So there's huge databases being built about particular individuals. Those, again, are being used by the corporations. They're being used by the government in China, and then that's where they're testing the 15-minute cities. So if you say something bad, well, your 15-minute city might be a 5-minute city. And they're already locking down grids. They're already testing it. They're doing a trial run of that in the United Kingdom. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening.
Hold on, Lulu. Explain the difference. What does 15-minute, what does 5-minute mean?
Well, this is the restrictions that they're setting up, pretty much essentially prisons, pretty much essentially lockdowns. They did this in China and they tested it during COVID. They locked down entire communities because they said they had a positive case. But what a lot of people are saying, that this was most likely a larger test to see how these 15-minute cities would work, because they would lock down entire neighborhoods and say, you can't move between this street and this street. You can't go between here and here. They tested it out in Australia, where people were fined and arrested from going from one city block to another city block because they were going through an imaginary line in jurisdiction. So a lot of people say that there was a dry testing of this larger concept, which is essentially prison grids, internal systems where you can't move around anywhere but 15 minutes within it, and you get everything you ever wanted.
Right. The idea is that within 15 minutes of your home, you can get access to anything you would need.
Correct.
Yeah, hospitals, supermarkets, entertainment, movies, whatever it is, it's all confined here. And you better not go around. This is, again, to de-incentivize people from driving, de-incentivize people from having personal liberty, track, trace, and database of society, of total control grid of information, knowing every little thing about you, and then that information being used against you in every way. And if you're not a part of the 50 Cent Army, well, your ability to move around is going to be limited a lot more, because the checkpoints are already there. They're digital, and they have cameras and facial recognition, and
all right,
they're setting it up.
I want to say something. There's a viral video we talked about. It's really funny. It's where a guy says he wants to show you a perfect example of a 15-minute scene, how it works, and then he walks up this little shed and he says, "Let me show you a 50-cent city." When he opens it up, chickens, and he goes, "Welcome to a 15-minute city." He walks inside and says, "Here, the citizens have everything they could hope for. Well, they could go outside if they want. Look, the door's open. They don't want to leave. It's safe in here. There's no danger. They have food. They have water. It's always there for them." And then he walks into another room and he goes, "You see this?" And he starts grabbing eggs and he goes, "They make these and I take them from them. But it's okay. They're happy because they're safe in their 15-minute city." So he made a really great point. And I want to make a point on top of that. Could you imagine if you went to your chicken coop one day to collect chickens and a bunch of roosters pulled out guns and pointed them at you and said, "You're not taking the eggs this time"? You'd be like, "What? How did these chickens have guns?" And then you go and be like, "We got to take these guns away." It was, "Well, we can't." Like, the chickens have guns. And you're like, "I don't know how they're even using them." And then you got to figure out, how do you disarm the chickens? If they're armed and they can fight back, you can't take from them, you can't imprison them, you can't control them. They're on an equal footing with you. Obviously, chickens don't have guns. My point is, if someone is trying to control you and you have the means of telling them no, they cannot implement their authoritarian fascist takeovers. And that's what we've seen throughout history when despots and fascists try to take over.
Yeah.
Guns make it very difficult.
That was one of the impetus of the Second Amendment.
And that's why they're doing this in China. They did this in China. They're doing this in the United Kingdom. They did this in Australia during COVID. Right now in Oxford, specifically in the United Kingdom, they're doing the trial run for the 15-minute cities, blocking people from traveling one road to another, all in the name of sustainability. It's not sustainability, it's enslavement. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you look at the World Economic Forum, et cetera, the data, it's not framed as a conspiracy. It's not framed to manipulate, to control. It's framed to be sustainable. That's the approach that they use.
It's sustainable to have farm animals, to treat human beings like they have no dignity, no individual human spirit, and they can't live on their own, and they need to be dictated what they can and cannot do or believe in or think. And that's essentially this larger notion, this larger elitism of individuals thinking that they have the right. And they're doing this in so many instances that are so bastardized, that are so disgusting. They think that they have the right to control what goes into your head, to control what you see, what you hear. And they're doing this with big tech social media already in so many different ways, trying to engineer people to be perfect lemmings, to be perfect slaves, to acquiesce, to bow down, and to take it. And I think people who are paying attention had enough of this bullcrap.
All right, you guys ready for this one? Yep. Let's jump to this next story from the Post-Millennial. FBI flags slang terms Chad, based, red-pilled, it's over to target racially motivated violent extremists. The FBI's Domestic Terrorism Reference Guide on Involuntary Celibate Violent Extremists offer a threat overview for incels that aims to identify them by the slang they use. So you thought Biden's 50 Cent Army was bad.
Yeah.
You're going to have a whole bunch of crackpot woke cultists getting paid to promote Democrats. Now, the feds are going to be targeting you if you say things like based.
And that's one of the reasons your former guest, Vivek, wants to eliminate the FBI. One of the many reasons he wants to eliminate the FBI.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, wow, this guy's...
It's pretty hardcore.
You know, Ron Paul was saying that many decades ago. He was saying that 30 years ago. And I think there was individuals even before that, at the very beginning of the FBI, they have a horrible record, especially with J. Edgar Hoover, especially with what they did to JFK, what they did to MLK, what they did to Malcolm X, what they did with MK Ultra. Holy cow. If you look at this agency, there needs to be some oversight. There needs to be some accountability. There was just a new disclosure happening with the Proud Boys trial with January 6th. And people just found out that out of the 13 Proud Boys, 8 of them were paid FBI informants. 5 of them are being prosecuted. So that's more federal agents that took part of January 6th, a part of the Proud Boys, than the actual Proud Boys, which is crazy. Those are insane numbers. And then they're hiding and making sure that they're spying on the defense. I mean, what's happening with the January 6th case is just a notion of what's going to be happening to everyone unless we address this and stop it.
So this is a very postmodern notion. The idea that power is everywhere and you can use words, and they've done so incredibly, they've been incredibly effective at this. You can use words to change the culture. You can use words and... I mean, think about that. Red pill. I mean, these are not the N word. They're not even remotely close to it. These are words that indicate a condition. Oh, you know, from the Matrix.
But it's not that. It's a reference to being part of a subculture. And if the FBI thinks based or Chad, it make you a racially motivated extremist.
The left uses base too, though.
Exactly.
There are 7 words altogether. It was based, red pill, blue pilled, normie, Chad, LARPing, and incel. If that's the
Normie,
criteria
LARPing,
that you're using, you're going to be going after everyone.
LARPing is a leftist primarily.
Wow, that's
LARPing's a role-playing
Wow,
gamer.
exactly.
but leftists,
live action role play.
Right.
Baby.
But leftists use LARPing substantially more than people on the right do to claim that the right is live action role playing their fantasies.
This is a big problem that with the FBI is having now is they're downstream from social media, from the technology, and all this data can be spoofed. Like if Facebook wants to tell the FBI that you said something you didn't say, they can, and they can make it look like you did in the software.
Even the idea that we're living in the United States and then this is an issue at all is insane. That is another reason why there's a legitimacy crisis. Nobody trusts the institutions anymore.
It's because it's a global community now. Like we live in the U.S., but this global governance, it's here now. We can say like it's coming, but it's here now. Like it is one unigovernment that's trying to
But the corruption
alter
is
the shape
so
of our...
in your face, though. When you have a moment in time in history where you say Chad, you're going to be investigated by the FBI, right? If you say it online, you say incel, you say red pill, you go to Epstein Island. You're on the client list of Mr. Epstein. FBI's like, yeah, you're clear. You're good. Don't worry about that. How in the world are we allowing the Federal Bureau of Investigations? By the way, the DOJ, FBI had an investigation on Epstein. They never released the findings of that investigation. They have the client list. They have the videos. They have the pictures of very powerful people doing some very horrible things.
Well,
why wasn't anyone punished?
I mean, if you were on some dude's island and then you were asked to investigate yourself, you wouldn't release the list either.
That's true. Good point. Very good point there. So, yeah. So, that makes
I imagine
total
that's
sense.
likely the circumstance.
I think why are we letting people do this? Because people haven't stepped up to build systems that are resilient to this kind of behavior. So it's going to happen. We need systems that are encrypted, where we control locally our own system. We need to be able to govern ourselves locally as best as possible. When you start building systems like that are not untrackable but challenging to track, I think you're in a better place where the code's readable.
But the issue is the FBI, the DOJ have gone after anybody who makes encrypted communications.
I feel like they're afraid that there's going to be some sort of revolt or revolution in the States.
I hadn't heard that. I encrypt everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, aside from the fact that they've probably cracked a whole lot of the encryption.
Telegram, the Russian government has cracked Telegram. They're investing people who
let me
complain about the Russian war.
I'll just ask you something very simple. Who do you think has more cyber resources, a private company or a nation state? If we're talking, it obviously depends on the nation state, right? Yeah. I think Chiquita Bananas had a good holdover. What was it? What countries was it?
Nicaragua? I don't know.
I don't think it was.
Costa Rica?
There are two countries.
Costa Rica. But anyway, I digress. We're talking about Russia and their military capabilities in terms of cyber warfare. Pretty sure they're going to have more resources than Telegram. And they're going to have a capability to either crack Telegram encryption or simply put, go to the people who run it and then say, here's what you're going to do or else. Maybe the CEO of some company goes out for his pick up his newspaper in front of his apartment. When a black van pulls up, guys throw a bag over his head, throw him in, they drive off. Nobody knows it happened. And then he wakes up in a dark room and they're like, you are going to give us a backdoor to all of your encryption or else. And they go, whatever you say.
And that's exactly what happened to LavaBit and the founder of LavaBit. I interviewed the guy. It was Edward Snowden's email service that he was using. The feds came to him and says, give us everything on Edward Snowden.
Or else.
And then he, I believe he printed out 100 pages of the password in very small font and then gave it to the FBI, legally complying with them. And then they had to manually put in the long password to the encryption. And then when they were doing that, I think he deleted the server.
He shut the whole company down.
Shut the whole company down. And then this is why, this is like in China. This is almost exactly what's happening in China. But here we just have a different face on it. And the more we don't understand this reality, the more we kind of hinder ourselves. Because when we look at Facebook, when we look at YouTube, when we look at, as we found out from Twitter, we're not looking at private entities and private corporations. We're looking at government's hand inside of the business directing not only who gets to say whatever they want to say, but who gets to see it, why they get to see it, who gets promoted, who gets demoted. That right there is the power to control people's minds. And that's the power that they're wielding every single day. And people need to realize it more than ever.
This story that came out a few weeks ago, or like a week and a half ago, that Elon Musk said there were qualifiers coded into the Twitter system that would identify you as a Democrat, a Republican, or a VIP, or Elon Musk, which was funny and weird that he had his own special category of like, this is Elon, he's tweeting. But they would label you a Democrat or Republican. Like they had that in their system and people were calling that out. How much do you want to bet that if you had the Democrat tag, that was okay that you said that thing about those kids? When that guy posts the picture of the wood chipper with blood coming out during the Covington kid incident, I wonder if he had one of those tags on it and they're like, he's okay.
So the thing that's been running through my mind through this conversation is, let's say that somebody who doesn't listen to you tunes in, Tim. It's so hard to break through to people when you show stories like this, or when you talk about scores, or when you talk about, because they'll just think you're a conspiracy theory, lab leak conspiracy. So how do we, the thing that I've been thinking about for quite a while is, how do we reach these people? Like, what is it that we can say, or how do we convey this in a way that makes them think, I'll put myself in this, we are not conspiracy theorists when we talk about this.
Oh, this is funny. I mean, look, I use NewsGuard certification for all the sources we use. I know NewsGuard's not good. I know they're biased. They attacked us and then put a bunch of lies about Timcast.com. We still end up getting a near perfect score. They gave us a strike out of like 10. We got 1 because we quoted Donald Trump. That's it. That's all we did.
Yeah.
We ran a story. Donald Trump said this. And they went, oh, nope, that's fake news. And I'm like, all we're doing is quoting a guy. But I digress. The point is, when I try and talk to people who are, as I describe, uninitiated, I'm not going to come out right away and start talking about Burisma and Ukraine and all this really crazy stuff. I'll take it really, really light and be like, yeah, that the Trump impeachment, that was, what was it? There's that video of Joe Biden saying that he was threatening to withhold congressionally approved aid, which was illegal or something like that. Real light approach. And then if they say, what? I don't know anything about that. I'll be like, oh, here, I'll show you. And then you just pull up a NPR or some other news source and be like, I don't know, read it. You tell me what you think. I usually take that approach. I'll say, here's the story. What do you think?
Yeah.
I have the opposite approach. I just go right over the head. Satanic child traffickers, right, private islands,
Jones method.
entities, demons. Let's just go there. I think different people have different ways of approaching this information. But I think first of all, the conversation needs to be started. We're doing our
I
best
agree.
here,
I totally
but the conversation
agree. Yeah.
starts with the people who are listening, the people who are taking notes, the people who are studying, because you guys need to be informed more than ever. And it's the game's rigged on social media. The game's rigged here. The game's rigged everywhere online. But it's not in real life. This is why, again, I'm not just trying to be a shill here, but I've been a big proponent of t-shirts. I've been a big proponent of people talking to their family members, their friends. And I think that is more imperative than ever of individuals doing their homework, doing their research. And whether it's having a lighthearted kind of approach of empathy, whether it's hitting them over the head with just the bigger truths going down the rabbit hole, who knows what will work. But I think being brave and being able to have those conversations is the first step that we need to have.
But the other thing too is, outside of all of that, there's a real simple way to win. It's called voting with your dollars.
Yeah.
So shout out to our friends at Public Square. Download the Public Square app. They've sponsored the show before, but this is a freebie because I really do believe in what they're doing. It's an app that shows you businesses that have taken a pledge to support American values. So you can make sure you're giving your money to companies that believe in the good. And then don't buy anything from Anheuser Busch. There you go.
And don't donate to your alma mater, please.
Yeah. Will Chamberlain liked to say, I don't know if he still does, I'm assuming he does, seize the endowments.
Yep. And that's one of the things that we're doing at my nonprofit, National Progress Alliance. It should be the easiest ask in the world. Don't donate. By the way, I personally don't like the hardcore approach. So I'll ask people, I'll say something like, which is true. I don't know if you guys were, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I personally was duped by the Hunter Biden laptop story. I thought it was a plant. I'm betting you guys didn't.
Jury's out for me.
I think-
wait for facts and proof, and I want proof 3 times before I start to accept something.
Luke probably went completely in the other direction.
Yeah.
And then I was probably in the middle, like, let's figure out where this came from.
Yeah, so the way that I try to reach people is I'll say, I'll put it on myself. I fell for that. What were you thinking about that? And then I'll say, well, which is also true. I didn't really know whether or not it was a lab leak hypothesis, but the lab leak hypothesis is true. But all these people said, people who were in authority, people who were supposed to be trusted, I believe them and I was wrong. In other words, like I was wrong, maybe they were wrong, I was wrong. But what about this? What about this? So if you can undermine their confidence in things in the past, they can make their own conclusions about whether or not.
I think the best thing you do is be genuine. And if you believe something, say you actually believe in those things. And I think living your life as an example, being like, hey, I don't do this. I don't support this. I don't want my money going towards this. I don't want to spend my time investing in these really bad people that are connected to these really awful people with these chemicals and this thing and that thing. And again, it's all personable. So if you're seeing someone who's very kind of sensitive, who's very kind of introvert, you obviously don't do my method. You obviously use Tim's method. But if you see someone who is open-minded, someone eager, obviously you just beat them over the head straight down the rabbit hole.
I like to steel man the opposition. I kind of take that role on this show. A lot of times people in the audience think I'm like an idiot, but like I will act as if we are wrong, and I will give you.
Yeah, it's so important to do that, and it's also so unfortunate that you have to. It's so unfortunate that woke people will not have conversations with you. They will not engage in discussion,
The
dialogue,
smart
and
ones
debate.
understand why they can't.
Well, 100%, because they have not. It's such a bankrupt ideology, and the people forwarding it have profoundly mediocre minds.
Well, it's not that. It's that there is no ideology. So
What do you mean?
So, I mean, this is my consistent position on what wokeness is. Wokeness is the modern left liberal culture formulated by social media algorithms. It is characterized by cult-like adherence to liberal social orthodoxy. That's all it is. And the example of this is Ukraine. Why woke people support a war in Ukraine makes literally no sense. It doesn't follow any academic theories.
Okay, so I think we have to unpack it. Have you read Tim Urban? Tim Urban, The Wait But Why? What's Our Problem?
No, but you were mentioning him before.
This is like one of the best books I've ever read. But in chapter 5 about social justice, he has a chart. I think we sent you that chart. If you could pull it up, great. But he talks about, I do think it's a coherent ideology. Yeah, there it is from Tim Urban's Wait But Why blogger. What's Our Problem? It's fascinating how it originates in Marxism, goes down the tree to critical theory. This is the best book since the 2020 Cynical Theories by Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay on this topic, in my opinion. And he talks about social justice fundamentalism at one end and liberal social justice. I think you and I think everybody in this room, frankly, falls on the side of liberal social justice. Not equality of outcome, equality of opportunity. Not using race to divide, but being what is now a microaggression, colorblind to people. We make those judgments. I do think that there's a fundamental core tenet, or there are fundamental core tenets of the ideology. And so racism is everywhere. It's baked into the system. There's whiteness, but privilege seeks to preserve itself. I mean, et cetera, et cetera.
And that is a component of what wokeness is, but it's also just, when I try to envision wokeness as an object, it is like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Yeah.
It is, but that's because wokeness isn't an ideology. It is not this thing. These things, they frustrate me when I see, and I think this chart is probably correct. Going from postmodernism down and critical race theory and intersectionality, but it applies an academic worldview into the modern problem, which has already been shown by numerous data points, including there was the Zach Roberts LexisNexis Twitter thread from a few years ago, that all around the same time, everywhere in the world, the same thing happened, where there was a massive spike in the same concepts, ideas, words. And what likely happened is, and I'll put it this way, the reason why I don't believe we're dealing with an ideology of the left, we're dealing with algorithmic corruption, is that Jack Dorsey was not woke until he started eating the own refuse of his own social media platform.
Okay, so can we spend some time on this? Because I think this is really important. Okay, so this is the frame that I suggest thinking about this. At the top, you have theory. Below that, you have institutions, and downstream from that, you have individuals' beliefs. So 2017, we had almost this exact conversation, a very heated debate.
I would call it lively. I thought it was great.
No, I thought it was great too. I thought it was fantastic with James and Helen in the room. So at the level of theory, you have what we tried to do with Sokol Squared at the grievance studies hoax. We tried to undermine the theory. We tried to show that it's bogus. We tried to attack it. What Reed and I are going around the world doing street epistemology is to show so that it goes from the theory to the institutions to the people, the institutions, the academies, K through 12, and we can talk about that, more than happy to talk about that, our academic institutions. You get promoted and tenure based upon the papers you write, usually 7 papers in 7 years. Unless you write something that's morally fashionable, it's very difficult to get published. And we're going to do the University of San Francisco story, I hope, because I think that this encapsulates it perfectly. Educational administrators themselves participate in the ideology. So there's a structure. And so when you say algorithms, I want to say 2 things that are important about this. The woke people occupy so they get their degree 5, 6, 7 years later. They go out, they become administrators, they become managers, et cetera, et cetera. They bring the madness that they took with them, that they think it's true, based upon what they perceive to be legitimate bodies of literature: microaggressions, trigger warnings, safe spaces, belonging, equity, all this nonsense. They take that with them and they institutionalize that. We can cover it if you want, but it's a reverse Trojan horse, Martin Bailey. We can cover that. So now, to get to your point about the algorithms, yes, you are correct, but the algorithms themselves wouldn't even make sense unless you understood that model. Like, this doesn't come ex nihilo, like manna from heaven, right? This comes at a very specific place.
I'm starting to think that institutions include social media networks now.
Hold on. One of the first big political trends was probably loose change 9/11, which was certainly not within the confines of this academia, and the Ron Paul revolution, which was absolutely not in the confines of this academia. What happens is you see, what I believe it is that humans have tendencies rage makes someone more likely to share something than any other emotion, anger. And I always shout out CGP Gray's video, "This video will make you angry." And he explains this, and he was like, it's really great. He's like, this group is talking about the other group is talking about this group. They're not actually talking to each other. They're talking about each other. And he's like, trust me, I am not talking about your group. So what I see here is, yes, the ideologies of the left do exist, and they do have a degree of prominence among the modern left today. But there's also, I don't know, how many ideologies exist? 100,000?
Oh, countless.
Millions, countless. So why is it that this is the one? I think the issue is...
That's a genealogical question that I could answer.
But I don't think...
The chart actually answers that.
But this chart then omits every other ideology and the path that's taken and its degree of prominence in modern
but every
culture.
other ideology isn't the dominant moral orthodoxy now. Wokeism is the dominant moral orthodoxy. We see it everywhere.
And it's because of social media algorithms, not because of universities.
Okay. So that's the question. Why are the social media algorithms catering to the moral orthodoxy?
So very simply put, advertisers fund moral orthodoxy. Before wokeness took over, how did this begin? First, we had what year was it, Luke? 2008, 2009, the Ron Paul revolution?
Right around there, yep.
You're starting to see the emergence of moralizing through social media, with people listening to Ron Paul's message and it resonating to the point where they were going around slapping stickers everywhere, anti-intervention, sound currency, a lot of really, really awesome things that I completely agree with today. But eventually, these social media platforms started to adopt algorithms that would show you more of what you engaged with. Two things happen. People are more likely to share something that makes them angry, and advertisers are less likely to advertise on something that's morally objectionable. In modern culture at the time, 2008, we find racism to be objectionable. So a big advertiser says, I don't want my product on racist content.
Yeah, okay, so you just smuggled something in there. We find it to be objectionable because this is morally fashionable. Like, this is what's morally fashionable today.
But this was pre-wokeness.
Yeah, I guess the main wokeness really kicked in 2012, 2010. So 2008, I would give it's pre-wokeness. But in that case, you're talking about a kind of tribalism, right? You're not talking about the algorithms themselves. Do they feed outrage? For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Every single thing you've said is true. And I don't mean to use a big word, but it's the only word to describe it. It's covariant. Like, both of those variables act upon each other at the same time to enforce the dominant moral orthodoxy even more than it was in the first place.
So what's happening is, this is why I say that the problem is not the ideology. The ideology has existed for a long time. The ideology is a component of the problem. The problem is we are in a feedback loop of algorithms quadrupling upon quadrupling our problem. It's exponential growth. So the example of this I give is 2008, it starts with the viral Ron Paul revolution, which is a good thing. Then you start to see, my favorite example is Mike.com, which started off as a website exploiting this, and they were producing libertarian content. However, within that libertarian content was anti-police brutality content, because libertarians didn't like that either. There was also Second Amendment audits that were going viral where people were like, the cops stopped me. And you get these videos of people challenging police officers.
Right.
Then people start adding in a racial component. Why? Because they start putting up videos of police brutality against black people. These videos start getting just plastered all over Facebook because it makes money. At one point, a website that was dedicated to nothing but police brutality videos was the 400th most viewed website in the world.
What website was that?
I'm not going to say what website that was. And they were paying their writers an exorbitant amount of money, and all they did was post videos of police brutality. This starts fracturing the minds of 10-year-olds in 2010, who are now 23-year-olds who are voting in this election, whose entire worldview has been built upon a machine that started with libertarian, advanced into so here's what happens. When libertarians are sharing anti-police content and they're getting a lot of views, because people don't like injustice. It is the epitome of injustice when a cop violates our rights. Like, that's the opposite. They're supposed to be upholding the law. Then you add in a racial component, and now you have an exponential growth. The people who hate racism and the people who hate police brutality, everyone's seeing it and everyone's sharing it. Then Mike.com shifts its business model and says, this gets more views. Let's do more of this instead. The company then slowly, rather exponentially, rapidly shifts into a woke social justice company. But here's the thing. When this happened, we didn't have the word woke. I mean, sort of. It was here and there. What was the word? intersectional feminist, which then gave rise to social justice and social justice warriors. I mean, at first it was feminism, then it was intersectional feminism, then the SJW, then we ended up with the complaints about critical race theory. Then people pointed out actually critical gender theories in there too, and now it's woke. What we're seeing is a feedback loop of social media algorithms funneling refuse back into the mouths of people in what I would only describe as a human centipede of ideology.
Just to clarify, would you say that woke is the way that the ideology is funneled? Because
so when people say, what does woke even mean? Okay, well, when the average person describes woke, they may mean a bunch of different things. But the one unifying factor is they're referring to the modern left liberal orthodoxy that was created by social media algorithms. And the example I give is Ukraine war is the easiest way to understand this. Why is it that Hassan Piker will be like, here are these things that I believe, trans rights, and then I also am for war in Ukraine. And you're like, what do these things have to do with each other? And why is it that this individual has no principles? It's just, he just follows the orthodoxy.
You think there's a woke on the other side of the coin? Like for people that
like
are obsessed with
right-wing
Trump,
version.
yeah.
But it's so small and there's no institutional power behind it. I find it to be negligible.
But it could become a problem if it were let. If they got control of the machine.
I think it was white nationalism.
Yeah, I think that the anti-woke people are starting to use some of the tools of the woke now. So I want to come back to what you said because I think it's important. Cancellation or not having conversations with people with whom they disagree. So I think that they're adopting the tools to buttress the ideology. So this is both a very complicated problem and a non-complicated problem. So I don't mean to muddy the waters too much, but I do want to say this because it's been really bumming me out. So I read a piece in The Epistemology of Democracy. It was by Keith Stanovich. It was about my side bias. And my side bias, this will horrify you when you hear it, but my side bias is exactly what you think it would be. My side is right, your side is wrong. But the article or the chapter in the book argued that there's literally nothing you can do to overcome my side bias. No training, no education, nothing. But when you combine that research chapter with what you just said, not only can you not do, there's no amount of education that can get over my side bias. You're now talking the algorithm being held hostage to the algorithm.
Yes, so and the humans being held hostage by the humans.
So even if there weren't the case that you're being held hostage by the algorithms, you're still suffering, this my side bias thing, no training, no education, et cetera. You just can't. So what are you going to do? So that is, I think, what is often missing in these conversations. What I just like to throw in there, we know there's a problem. We've been talking, you and I have been talking for years. We know this is a problem. And I think what people are hungry for now is, what are we going to do about it? What's
psychedelics?
You said one thing, right? We're going to stop donating to alma mater. We're going to stop buying. We're going to vote with our dollars, if you will. But I think what would be helpful, I think, to a lot of your viewers is ending every one of these sessions, these conversations with, what are you going to do about it? Like empowering them to do something.
And so obviously that's why I wanted to lead with the Anheuser Busch story, because it seems like this is particularly effective. Let me tell you, I've got these tweets that I love to tweet where I say something like, sterilize your children to prevent overpopulation.
Right.
It's a joke, right? Or I'll say something about leftists will abort their children or sterilize their children. And then I had one tweet where I said, and this is a good thing because it stops overpopulation and humans are causing climate change. Not one time has any publication ever criticized me or written about those tweets. Yet, when I say don't buy beer, I get 500 articles saying far-right fascist, outraged, whiny loser, because you can tell what's working. They don't want to bring up the fact that they're aborting their kids and sterilizing them because that's bad for them in the long run. But if they highlight that, they have to point out the things we're promoting are detrimental and deleterious to our ideology. And then when I say something like don't buy beer, they're like, quick, we got to put a stop to that. Yeah. Not only is it affecting our potential sales because it's sponsored by this company, but there's truth to the fact that if Budweiser sales do drop and they are forced to apologize, that will be a major shift in the culture war. The moment a massive multinational corporation says, we are sorry for being woke people will lose their minds because that means
we're sorry. We made a genuine mistake. We wish we hadn't done it. We'd like to get you back. And
that's and real quick, Netflix never apologized for cuties, and they still have big mouth. But when they started getting rid of some of the woke shows and stuff they had, and they talked about it, they saw a subscriber increase. So they're probably learning an important lesson, but the apology is everything.
You said earlier.
Real quick, just one last point. Antifa uses violence, and the far left uses violence, and in the summer of love, they got away with it because they have law enforcement to a certain degree on their side, either because police are too feckless or the DAs are bought and paid for. So these big companies, as I've long stated, do not fear Dave Rubin, classical liberals showing up with pitchforks. They do fear Antifa, who do it and get away with it. Yeah. If Budweiser is willing to make an apology to all of us for sponsoring Dylan Mulvaney, that means they are saying the threat of physical force from Antifa is not as scary as us actually going out of business.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, and I want to just say to the people listening to this, one of the things that I've seen over and over again is people are very afraid to piss off the far left. My comment to you is they already hate you. They already hate you because you're going to say something or not toe the line perfectly. Do not be afraid of these people. Do not be held hostage to them. Be based.
Also, the cartels and Islam. Don't be held hostage to violent extremists of any kind. No offense, people. They're not Islam at all. But I mean, what's his name? Richard Dawkins was afraid to even criticize or talk about it. Yeah. And that's really sad because every religion should be criticized.
Shout out to Steven Crowder, potentially one of the most fearless guys, who's constantly making jokes and saying F you to all of these extremists who are telling him to shut up.
You said earlier how these things could cause people to lose their minds, these far left. And you were saying this my side bonus. I actually jokingly said psychedelics, but like I think being able to clear your mind helps you see the danger of your side. Like if it means that recording yourself on video, uploading it, and watching yourself say it and having no choice but to accept that's what you are, you'll see what you did wrong. The psychedelics, you got to do what's legal and what's safe for you, but being able to clear your mind, whether through fasting, I think it helps you see the crap on your side.
Let's jump to this story from Timcast.com. Female swimmer assaulted by trans activists while speaking on women's rights. Quote, this is proof that women need sex-protected spaces. So you may have seen this story. This is about Riley Gaines. She is a women's rights activist, I guess you'd call that a feminist, who has taken issue with males competing in female sports.
Right.
She was going to be speaking at an event, and a mob of far-left extremists chased her into a room, and then they pinned her down for about 3 hours.
Demanded ransom.
Yeah.
They said, make her pay us money.
That's extortion, I guess.
Look at what happened with Brett Weinstein in Evergreen when they were mocking and holding these administrators hostage. It's not the first time.
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know the Brett story, which you should, either watch the Jordan Peterson or the Mike Nana has a wonderful coverage of that.
I actually, a long time ago, produced a miniature documentary at Evergreen with Brett. And so you can search for Brett Weinstein, Evergreen, Timcast or something.
I want you on the show, Brett, if you're listening.
But so what was the latest development here with Riley Gaines?
Oh, so what I wanted to talk about is this a story? Yeah, no question about it. But this kind of stuff, this is an extreme, but it happened to Charles Murray. I mean, it happens all the time. Which really the story is what the university did. They said that they were peaceful protests. Yeah. They offered them counseling. They said transphobia has no place in the university. The statement, if you could pull the statement up, it's an utterly remarkable, it's opposite land.
Let me see if I can find it.
This is what is happening in our universities. And this is why it's so important to talk about this. It's, again, what I had mentioned. This is the legitimacy crisis. This is a crisis of legitimacy in institutions. And this is contributing to that.
It's the misuse of the word phobia, that's for sure. Because saying that you don't want biological men to compete in physical sports with biological females doesn't mean you're afraid of trans...
Or women's prisons.
Yeah, it's not that you're afraid of it. I mean, I'm not afraid. I'm concerned, maybe.
And it's not like this person's saying anything radical or crazy. She's just making logical political points that are not out of the ordinary, and to have a group of people chase her down to physically assault her. I mean, I was chased by some of these mobs before. I was assaulted by one of these mobs before. It's not fun to deal with, but the police officers here to cower and not do anything here, and the university to back the attackers here. Man.
It is a deranged statement. And anybody who reads that, if you ever had any question whatsoever that the academies are ideologically captured, read their statement.
Well, so they have New York Post has some of it. They say, following the mayhem, Jamila Moore, Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management, emailed students thanking them for taking part in the event. It took tremendous bravery to stand in a challenging space. I am proud of the moments where we listened and asked insightful questions. I am also proud of the moments when our students demonstrated the value of free speech and the right to protest peacefully. Welcome to the modern era.
And you see what they did, free speech, right? You see how they
chased her into a room, demanded money, threatened her life.
Right. And they framed it under free speech.
That's what they do. Is someone playing something or something?
Yeah,
I think someone's downstairs on the phone. Can you tell them to get off their phone if that's okay? And that they're
I was actually just communicating with Serge. I missed the top part of the quote that they said, but they were happy that the protests were peaceful.
They weren't peaceful.
Yeah, but
well, look at what happened with the Nashville 6.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, the Democrats, what do they start saying? The Nashville 3, they shift the entire narrative to these Democrats who get ousted for an insurrection at their state capitol.
Yeah.
Insurrection.
You think that all the institutions, all the colleges, I mean, obviously not all of them.
Okay, so this is a huge question. So I don't know if you've been following the work by Chris Rufo at New College in Florida and other places. So he is working hard to dismantle diversity bureaucracies. And speaking of which, we are in Austin, and one of the things that I'm doing is I'm a founding faculty at the University of Austin, and there's been none of this bullshit at the University of Austin. I can assure you, there's none of this bullshit.
How's that going? Is it
phenomenal? Well over $100 million. We got yeah.
Is it a new university or what?
Yep. It's free speech university. It's what a university should be. It's what a traditional university kind of was.
How old is it now?
It's the first class. We have a summer program, the Forbidden Classes program, and it'll be online 2024.
We got to get a high-speed rail in this city now.
Well, okay.
If we get that down here, we're going to be able to spread out.
Is it online only? Or
no, it's on ground only.
On ground only?
Yeah, and they have classes this summer where I'll be teaching the forbidden classes, the Kathleen Stock with gender, Mark Andreesen, Neil Ferguson, Ayan Hirsi.
How big is it? How many square feet? What do you got?
No, it's literally being constructed now.
Wow.
It's in Austin. But so you ask a great question. What percentage of universities? So I think a question is, what percentage of the people believe are caught in the orbit of the ideology? We don't really know the answer to that question because they've been so successful at creating a culture of fear that people won't honestly admit if they believe these truly deranged propositions. So we don't really know, but we know from whether or not there are offices of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are virtually every university, if not everyone, maybe not Hillsdale, Liberty, the conservative. We know that there are bias response teams at over 150 universities, 250 universities where you can, and that's from Julian Melcher in the Wall Street Journal, published that a few years ago. It's been updated, where students or anyone can file a report that is lodged with the police if they even, for thought crimes. So our universities are experiencing ideological capture. This has been the base of my disagreement with Tim. The base of my disagreement with Tim is that this is the nucleation point. This is the point from which it all erupts. And what we haven't talked about at all, but I probably should mention because it's so important for context, is that I can't, all my publications, et cetera, or someone, let me take it off myself. Someone who has a lot of publications, research, go to Google Scholar, teaching, over quarter century of teaching, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody like that can't just go into the public schools and start teaching. You need a teaching certificate. All of the colleges of education that grant teaching certificates, literally all of them are woke. They're predicated on Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Press. James Lindsay, guest of your show, your friend, also talks about this pretty extensively. This is a woke indoctrination mill for teachers in K through 12 systems, and we get this madness.
So I think I disagree with you. I think you're wrong.
Okay.
What we saw with what was his name? Nick Christakis, was that his name?
Yeah. Nicholas Christakis. Yeah.
Nicholas Christakis.
Princeton.
The students.
Oh no, Yale. Sorry.
Freshman students already had this ideology within them.
Right.
They brought it to the universities.
Correct.
And the universities said the customer is always right, and then recycled back to them what they were demanding.
Right. So you're actually making my point, unless I'm not understanding.
You're not understanding.
Okay.
These 16-year-olds are on Facebook. They're 10 years old. They get a Facebook account. They're not supposed to, but they do.
Yeah.
They see nothing but this weird algorithmic garbage. They enter the university and they demand these changes, and the schools say yes because you pay our bills.
So you're saying people from the university gatekeep who gets to teach at the elementary school?
Yeah, we're not disagreeing. We're not disagreeing.
My point was the universities.
That's what I'm. So
Right. What I'm saying is the universities did not originate this. There's elements of the ideology that obviously you can trace back to academia. What I'm saying is the universities have these things within them because young people were manipulated, brought it to the universities, and demanded it.
Okay, so if the causal explanation for this is solely algorithmic manipulation, then how is it, given that you yourself have said there are an awful lot of ideologies, then how is it that what an utterly remarkable coincidence that it's the ideology taught in universities and it's the same one that the ideology pushes? That's way too much of a coincidence.
When did it become, when did we start seeing these protests, this uproar, the far left extremists? It's been over the past 10 years. It has quite literally been since LexisNexis data points out the emergence of social media around the world created an expansion of this ideology.
It seems like you're both have a touch of my side bias because you're a student of the internet, Tim, and you're a student of the academia, it seems, and you're both right. It's a confluence of events. It's happening online.
I'm not disagreeing with you. He's disagreeing with me, which is totally 100% fine.
What I'm saying is the algorithms amplified our mental, our worldview. At the same time as we started seeing the emergence of the far left stuff, we also saw an expansion of white nationalism.
I got it. Critical pedagogy started before social media. So
Yes.
critical pedagogy was the precursor to that. Those people got social media, Alyssa, all these people, they are in a sense, they actually are, everybody wants to be a victim. This is John Haidt says a victim culture. It is a victim culture, but they are actually victims. They're epistemic victims of a deranged ideology. Those people were then placed in seats of power from K through 12 up. They've been getting that. So the kids who came to Yale, they've been indoctrinated with that stuff for years.
This is what I don't quite understand, how it's an ideology.
Well, it's a suite of beliefs, right? There's systemic racism. Racism is baked into the system. Privilege seeks to preserve itself. All of those things
War in Ukraine.
cohere. Okay, well, you've mentioned that a few times. I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole,
But this is a huge hole in the idea.
But it's not a huge hole. But it's also a lot of conservatives believe that too. I just talked to Douglas Murray the other day. There's Douglas Murray was in Ukraine. He is for the United States. I mean, again, I'm trying not to go down to the Ukraine thing, but you have it. It's just like
they oppose cryptocurrency too.
It's just like.
They're also
Balaji has some great stuff on that for why that is.
They're also very pro-vaccine and love
toxin.
Dr. Fauci.
It's a toxin to woke. But all those things are in the orbit of the ideology. All of them.
In essence of mindless adherence, or
what do you mean?
Like, how is being at war in Ukraine, opposing cryptocurrencies, and being pro big pharmaceutical companies in any way associated? I mean, in fact, I would argue the being in favor of massive multinational corporations is actually, it's paradoxical.
It's kind of like joining the military, assuming this consciousness. Like, if Joe Biden tells you, then you're going to do it. They've accepted, some people have accepted whatever they say.
Okay, so two things. One, what Ronald Reagan said in his famous debate, "There you go again." You're assuming, and I don't mean that as a slander on you, but you're assuming a kind of rationality that the proponents of the ideology have that they simply do not have.
Oh, I'm quite the opposite. I'm saying they quite literally have no rationality, and there is no coherent ideology at all. What we're looking at is a sewer of refuse that has been mashed together.
Yeah.
And what's happened is, I think regular people who are looking for answers seek experts who are anti-woke, and they find academics who then give them a very academic explanation.
Okay. So let's unpack a sewer that's been crammed together and force-fed, right?
Yeah.
Who is doing the force feeding?
The algorithms.
Okay, again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm telling you in no uncertain terms, the data is utterly overwhelming for this.
For
the people force feeding them are people who have gone through teacher training programs.
Jack Dorsey.
They're colleges of education. They're university administrators. We released a show. Lyle Asher released a show on my YouTube channel. Why colleges are becoming cults. We know why this is true, and the likelihood that that the same ideology could be both promoted in K through 12 and academic institutions and be promoted by the algorithm at the same time is virtually zero.
So Jack Dorsey, who pushed the free speech wing of the Free Speech Party until 2014.
Who also lied before Congress and hasn't been subject to perjury yet.
After
so
the fact.
Go ahead.
The original Twitter, when it was created, was the free speech wing of the Free Speech Party. When he created Twitter, it was in a similar vein to the Ron Paul revolution of freedom, libertarianism, etc. And then there was a shift. Now, it's entirely possible that the explosion of data points we see from LexisNexis in every country on the planet at the exact same time could be because a globalist cabal got together, sat around a table and said, implement order wokeness. Our plan has come to fruition. And then they activated the device, which turned every country into a woke, disaster zone. Or it could be that the advent of cellular technology put a phone in everyone's pocket, and then we gave everyone access to communication devices, which amplified our social biases.
Okay.
Creating two things. An interesting thing. In countries like Iran and China, they had an inverse conversation. They went completely anti-woke, but still saw the emergence of the same language.
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Taking everything that you just said, what is the disconfirmation criteria for that? Like, what piece of evidence or rationale or reason would you have to hear that would throw that speculation or hypothesis into question?
The LexisNexis data that's been repeated on multiple occasions was incorrect. The data is falsified. The tracking of this terminology and the rise of this language was misinterpreted and in fact has always been around, something like that.
You could see the algorithmic code over the last 15 years if you had like snapshots of the code on a weekly database to see like, was the algorithm actually inviting this discourse?
I spoke at universities after Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
I did not see this.
What year was that?
This is end of 2011. I was being invited to speak at universities.
Okay.
Into 2012 and 2013, and then
I don't think it came to prominence. It's also we have.
But wait. It didn't come to prominence in the universities around.
Well, I'm literally just going to say it's also a geographical phenomenon. So, for example, it's worse.
I was in New York.
It's getting worse on the coast. It's worse in traditionally blue places.
When I was at Occupy Wall Street, wokeness was just starting to permeate into the leftist ideology, and it was confusing to a lot of people. When I went and spoke at universities following Occupy Wall Street, all of the journalists were all of the professors were classically liberal. They were very much in that classically liberal vein where I am right now, and you probably are. And then over the next few years,
I am,
especially with what we saw with Gamergate, we saw the expansion of wokeness, which came from the internet and from young people into the universities. And then what we ended up seeing was a lot of people, so you can see the effect with celebrities, you can see the effect with corporations, slowly start adopting what they think is prominent. And I think they do it.
I'll give you what you're looking for. I'll give you what you're looking for. Read the algorithm. Let me ask you a question. Let's say we had a pie chart, and I'm claiming that it's K through 12, colleges of education, college administrators, infused throughout the curriculum, diversity statements, all of the stuff that seek to both indoctrinate students in an indoctrination mill and perpetuate the ideology. Let's say that you had two of those and they're not competing and you're going to fit them in a pie chart. What percentage of that pie chart is algorithm and what percentage of it is academic institutions? So
what do you mean? You mean like right
that's responsible for the freaking catastrophe?
Responsible? 100% algorithm. 97% perhaps.
100%. Okay.
Maybe 97.
Then our disagreement is far more substantive than I thought.
Yeah. So the issue is when I think what's happening is people are seeking answers as to what this ideology is. They're seeing specific examples of it. Many people are looking at the news in a very short-term perspective, and then they're following experts who they believe are academics. Academics who they believe are experts on the subject matter, and who likely are in the specifics of, say, critical race theory and critical theory, but they're not actually looking at the hard data of the social phenomenon that's occurred. And the strange thing to me is, like, as I often try to explain, there's hundreds of thousands of ideologies that existed in universities 20 years ago and sort of still do, but they're being pushed out. All of pre-social media, this wokeness did not exist at all. At all.
Go ahead.
And so, simply put, when Anheuser Busch says, I don't want my content appearing next to these things, these things get removed from social media.
Yeah.
It's an amplification machine that keeps spinning up and recycling these ideologies, which keep changing name. And I think the issue is, I'm on the ground at Occupy Wall Street. I'm on the ground at various protests in LA, all across the country. I'm in Spain, and I'm seeing similar things, and I'm seeing similar behaviors that don't have a core ideological function. And then today I'm seeing pro-vaccine stuff. I'm seeing pro-Fauci stuff. I'm seeing pro-Biden stuff. I'm seeing vote blue no matter who. All we need is your corporeal form.
Chatbot GPT too.
And I'm seeing Ukraine war stuff. None of these things fit your argument. Now, it is true, I think, that universities have become mills of wokeness. But I think within these mills, it makes no sense that there's a rainbow flag next to a Ukraine flag. There is no ideology that brings these things together. What does, however, is a social media algorithm that says adhere to orthodoxy.
Okay.
Or straight up the president telling people to do it. And they're so afraid of Donald Trump that they're just falling in line.
But why are they even afraid of Donald Trump?
Because they're like psychotic
think about
from
this too.
Poisoning the food supply, staring at the TV for four hours a day, 8 hours a day.
Where in these theories and these ideologies is Trump derangement syndrome?
So the Trump derangement syndrome, as far as I know, I'm sure someone's written a paper about it, but that's just something that's people have used, that often say conservatives have used. Sam Harris is an interesting thing about Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, he's Trump deranged. The dude Sam Harris is clearly unwilling to reflect upon himself. He's a perfect example of what he's complained about with Islam. He doesn't reflect upon the fact that he's wrong at all. He doesn't look at any of the data. He just hates Donald Trump to the point where he said he believed it was good to cheat to win elections.
All right. So here's my suggestion to you. Why don't you have him on and have a conversation with him?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime.
I'll text him right
so,
after this.
but the point is, Trump derangement syndrome exists. The left refers to it as Trump, what do they call it? Trump anxiety disorder.
And so, just to be clear for people listening, by Trump derangement syndrome, you mean?
When people become irrationally angry at the thought of Donald Trump, the truth-telling around Donald Trump, or anything he does.
But I would also,
for example, when they said the terrorist was an austere scholar, either anything he does is framed negatively, and any defense of him in any factual stance, like, hey, Trump, when he threw the fish with Shinzo Abe into the Koi pond, Shinzo Abe actually did it first. They say, you're a Trump supporter. They get irrationally angry. Sam Harris being a good example. He says that Sam Harris believes subverting elections is a good thing because Trump is that bad. Sam Harris actually said that if there was legitimate evidence of Hunter Biden sexually abusing children, it would not be as bad as Donald Trump running a fraud university.
I heard that.
That is
trigonometry.
Trump. Now, where in leftist ideology does that exist? It doesn't. What does is that Sam Harris is beholden to liberal social orthodoxy crafted by algorithms, and he doesn't want to break from it.
I'll tack on part 2 of the definition of Trump derangement syndrome is that when people are obsessively in love with Donald Trump, it's another form of derangement, the cult worship, that kind of thing, blind adherence.
I agree with you, but people don't use the word to mean that, but it does exist.
So there's so much to unpack in this. So when people are accused of Trump derangement syndrome, they will give the response that is a slur that people use who whitewash the fact that Donald, and I'm not saying I get it. Hear this, yeah.
It's
that Donald Trump is an enemy of democracy, and he has subverted the democracy, and he would not leave office allegedly, and he's a traitor, and whatever else happens. So
and my response is it's a cult.
Well, their response is not that this is an irrational hatred of Donald Trump; it's that this is a rational hatred of Donald Trump.
But any objective, and I mean this literally, any objective person knows that it is irrational. When, Donald Trump was impeached. Why? Because he made a phone call to Ukraine asking about Joe Biden withholding congressionally approved aid in exchange for a political favor.
Okay, so I agree with you. I agree that, again, perhaps it's a difference of degree.
Simply put, these people believe that because social media algorithms fed them false narratives and lies. Now, they say that every cell in our body is completely changed within 7 years. That means someone alive today Their
I've
entire.
heard that. I don't know if it's true, but
Well, I'm just making a nonsensical point. But
wives' tale.
the point is, a person's entire being, if they've been following corporate news since 2015, is comprised of life that believes all of these psychotic lies about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That we have debunked over and over and over again. And I don't think Trump's a saint. I don't think he's the greatest president who's ever lived or anything like that. I think on foreign policy, he's the best I've seen in my lifetime. I can tell you all the things that I didn't like what he's done. I can say that I was wrong when I took his side over Thomas Massie. And then you go and talk to somebody, and it's become a trope. Stop making me defend Trump was a trope throughout 2016, 2017, when the media would lie. They accused Donald Trump of being a traitor and having served the Russians as he was president. And there are people
remember that.
who still believe this.
Yeah.
Now that's Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah. Okay. In that sense, I think it's really important. Your point is really important that, and I think it's really important when we make mistakes that we've had about things in the past that we kind of fess up to them. That's why I fessed up to you about the Hunter Biden laptop and me had fallen for that. So I did buy into a lot of that media narrative that maybe he seems unnaturally close to Russia. Something's going on.
They lied.
Why has
Alpha
he
Bank lies?
Well, I heard a lot of that. There's a tape. It's that I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, Russian ladies of the night.
Yeah, you heard that.
Drinking
rumor.
a lot of beverages.
And this is my point. Social media
Yeah.
algorithms were feeding this content to people because it got clicks. So what we saw was...
Yeah, I mean, again, Tim, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right.
This is a huge problem. I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know how to get out of it.
So,
which is why I mentioned the my side bias, which is making it worse.
Yeah.
I think that we get out of it in a few ways. I think people who are aware of the issue should have as many kids as possible. I know everyone points to me and asks me where my kids are, personal issues, but we'll talk, but I'll keep that private. So I think people should have as many kids as possible.
That doesn't mean your kids will think like you.
There's no guarantee, but there's also a combination of factors. One, get out of cities. We see what's going on with Riley Gaines. We see what's going on in Austin with Daniel Perry. The lies the media is pushing on this guy, it's incredible. So Daniel Perry's got
or get off social media altogether, like Lukianoff has been saying, or John Haidt, for kids, young girls, liberal girls,
yes.
young women, white.
Take your kids' phones away.
Yeah, take your. Oh no, it's interesting. It's not YouTube. It's strictly social media. It's the problem that Haidt found.
Yeah. Your kids should not be on social media.
So like texting?
They shouldn't have phones. I don't think they should have cell phones.
Well, that's another thing. There's no, again, I'm not familiar with the data. I haven't looked into it, but people who are familiar with the data say it's not watching YouTube, it's not reading books, it's not texting, it's strictly social media.
I will clarify. They have these cell phones that can only make and receive phone calls and texts. Those are totally fine in my opinion.
Yeah. I thought you guys were saying something interesting about Trump derangement syndrome. You're saying that it's like an irrational fear of this, and you're saying that it's considered a rational fear.
I'm saying that the people accused of Trump derangement syndrome will claim that it's not a syndrome, that it's not irrational, it's rational. I think that's the response.
And I'm trying to look up, what does that even mean? What's rationality? It's something that you can claim based on a reason. What's a reason? Well, something that you think is right.
What's an Ianism?
Like it's so subjective, this stuff.
But I actually think that's a really good point when we're trying to break down why these people think they're rational. They think they have a reason for it. The reason I say that they are Trump deranged is the emotional vigor that comes along with it. You come to me and you tell me that Donald Trump was an evil tyrant. I'll say, why do you think that?
Yeah.
I go to them and I say, I think Donald Trump was the greatest president on foreign policy. They lose their minds.
Yeah. There's something really profound to that, right? Mm-hmm. There's something that people who can't engage, they just get like anthropogenic global warming, right? Like anthropogenic global warming. If you make an argument against it, or if you make no matter what your argument is, there are some people who will say, well, what's your evidence? And there are other people who will lose their minds.
And this is the point I'm making ultimately about the modern left and wokeness, is that climate change, Trump derangement syndrome, and Ukraine, Fauci, none of these things line up with academia, but they are deranged on all of these counts and equally defensible on all of these counts.
What's the best way to figure out if someone should fear a president?
I think looking at history and figuring out how you should fear a president, you look at history, you should probably fear all of them, including Donald Trump.
Amen. Absolutely.
So you don't think that Trump presented, maybe unique is too strong of a word, you don't think that Trump presented an especially dangerous threat to our democracy?
Why do you say our democracy?
Well, I mean, the United States as opposed to Canadian democracy.
Yeah, Trump represented probably the best effort we had at a saving grace of America, of the American constitutional republic.
You mean the whole clearing the swamp thing?
Not necessarily. My view of Trump is that he was more like a bull in a china shop, and that the ivory tower has been constructed over the past 100 years, probably since just before 1913.
Okay, let me ask you this question. On a scale from 1 to 10, we should fear Donald Trump how much, and we should fear Biden how much?
Biden, well, it's tough. It's not so much Biden himself, but Biden, for all that's around him, I would put it at an 8 or a 9. And Trump, I'd put it a 6, 5, or a 6.
Okay, so this is really, I want to say something interesting. So every time I've asked you a question, you've given me an answer. And I know that must sound like, well, of course I've given you an answer because you've asked me a question that I consider it reasonable. Maybe if I asked you a question about your sex life, you wouldn't answer the question. But
maybe he would.
Or maybe he would. I don't know. I wouldn't ask him. So it doesn't make a difference. But there is something also, I think it's an element of that Trump derangement syndrome that you mentioned, there's a kind of excitability or a kind of anger in that, or a kind of like, when you ask someone a question, they get upset that you ask them the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they don't want the questions asked at all. And that, I think, is more of a concern of the byproduct of what's happening to people's consciousness and how they engage each other, right?
Because they go on social media and they are told, this is what you must be, whether it's true or false, this. And I wonder if it's a component of low testosterone or just outside of that argument, agreeableness. Individuals who fear being ostracized because of, humans survive by being in social groups. Yeah. And those who are more willing to take risks to lead, if it's the right thing. So leaders versus followers. The people who are more likely to fall into the follower category are like, don't challenge the order. I will not have you get me ostracized. Yeah. Whereas my view is kind of like, ostracize me, I don't care. I'll do fine on my own. So I don't have that fear that these people probably do. They get angry because their brain understands that what is being told to them is likely true. But if it's true, it means the social order they're using to survive is wrong. Now they're faced with the evolutionary fear of a risk to their lives.
Yeah, so that's the question. How do you help people? In the literature, it's called build a golden bridge. Like, how do you help people walk over who are woke? And I'm thinking now I'm thinking the FBI is going to come for me when I say red pill,
You're
white
done.
pill.
We're coming in. They're busting in the door.
I think it's already too, my social credit score is already terrible. And how do you help people and not create adversarial relationships to say, oh, wow, geez, I thought this and maybe
Anheuser Busch. We need that apology. More than anything right now, we need that apology. We need to say to every single person who is blindly following social orthodoxy, you're on the wrong side of history. Because that's what they say, because that's what they fear.
Okay, that's, by the way, as I've told Reed 1,000 times, I've lost 5 friends now because of my stances on things. And 4 of those 5 people, all for woke reasons, 4 of those 5 people have said to me the same thing, you're on the wrong side of history.
Exactly.
I hear that constantly.
And that's the only thing they have that attaches them to any of these arguments they might make or any of these flag icons they'll put in their profiles or in their windows, is that they fear being on the wrong side of history for one reason. Yeah. Being shunned from the majority means death. Figuratively, but in the past for humans, literally. If Anheuser Busch apologizes, we get the high ground and we say, you're on the wrong side of history on this one, then they get scared. And they'll start to ask themselves, are we going to lose this one?
Yeah,
Should I be with them?
People often ask, well, what are some of the things you're sure you're right about in the culture war? Well, to me, it's pretty obvious. Don't defund the police. That's freaking insane. The other thing is child gender affirmation, gender affirming care. That is one I hear a lot of. I've mentioned to my friends years ago, why don't you write down, so like 3 years ago, why don't you write down the beliefs that you have now that are new that you've acquired in the last year or two? And why don't we revisit those in 5 years and see where we are? Hence the wrong side of history, people. And that's my other prediction too. You think you're smart? Don't think you're smart. Make predictions. My prediction is there'll be massive gaslighting at the end of this. Oh, I never believed this. And
Absolutely.
yeah, because it's so ghastly. They'll have to gaslight.
Well, if they want to be a part of the moral majority again.
There you go again. That's not the tribalism, but the one thing people want more than being right is to belong, right? It's to be loved. It's to be a member of a community. Wokeness offers that very, very easily. The signaling, the pronouns in the bio, etc.
We're going to go to Super Chats. We went a little long. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because we're going to have a members-only uncensored show at about 10 p.m. where that's where we're more likely to swear and be not so family-friendly and maybe get a little bit darker with the conversation, so you don't want to miss it. And you can also join the Discord server after you're a member where you can hang out with like-minded individuals. And then if you join at the $25 level or you're a member for at least 6 months, even call into the show and ask questions of us and our guests. But let's read Super Chats. All right. Freedom Jeffrey, 1776 says, "Hi, Tim. Can't wait to see you guys Friday in Austin.
Awesome.
Will we be able to take video in the venue? I don't know.
Are we live?
No idea.
It's live.
We should be fine, right?
And there might be venue rules. So I
Yeah.
want to say I
would love for people to be able to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Talk about building a golden bridge. Playing
I'm
music.
totally fine with it. And I think after the show too, we're going to give Ian a guitar and make him play music. for
Hell
everybody.
yes, let's do it. Frequent measure.
Because we've got I think a couple hours after the show of like, what do you want to do?
That's how you bridge the golden bridge. Like you need people to come to your show that are woke and that love Donald Trump,
100%.
and they all don't even know. They don't ask. Doesn't matter. They're just
couldn't
vibing.
agree more. They look at each other as people.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Let me read some more super chats. Raymond G. Otherwise, we'll talk forever. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, I enjoyed the Jorge segment. Always nice shining a light when it's the darkest before the dawn. We are based chads on that red pill. And oops, sorry, FBI, I kid. Go F your shelves. Let's go, Brandon. Yeah, Jorge Masvidal. This is the one of the greatest moments. I can't believe this happened. Donald Trump sitting with Mike Tyson, Kid Rock, and Dana White, watching a UFC fight. And then Jorge wins, and then gives a shout out to Trump as the greatest president.
I saw
and
that.
then says, "Let's go, Brandon!" And the whole crowd is cheering, "Let's go, Brandon!" as Joe Rogan is holding the microphone.
I saw that. It's great.
It's like, how is this real life? Yeah. But talk about a white pill moment. The whole audience yelling, "Let's go, Brandon!"
Yeah.
Hey, Miami's awesome. I've been in Miami the last few months. I love it there. The people there are incredible. Lots of anti-communist Cubans out there that I resonate my dislike for communists as a Polish-born person. So beautiful place, beautiful people. Can't recommend it enough.
Grant says the real victory of the Budweiser boycott is making Bud Light the drink of the left and forcing them to buy and drink lots of Bud Light. I saw a funny post. They said Bud Light is the beer for people who don't want to drink beer but want to drink lots of it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
Talk about fifth generational warfare. If you want to wipe someone out, that's another way of doing it. Like, hey,
yeah,
drink a bunch
there's
of beer.
something about
hey, go take this other product from Big Pharma.
When low tar cigarettes were popular, people smoked twice as much of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of water in Bud Light.
Bud Light's a terrible beer.
I know.
I'm not saying that for any other reason of it. It's just a terrible beer, independent of who
It's
markets
got to be
it.
like one of the worst beers.
Yeah.
It's just so basic, bland, not very tasty.
Yeah.
I think that's why people tend to go for it because it's not overly.
It's rice
tasteful.
beer. Yeah, I'm not. I'm into I like the thicker, stoutier.
Yeah, man.
Like
Guinness.
Dark,
I'm a
chocolatey.
huge fan of Guinness. You said Newcastle. I love Newcastle brown ale.
So
Old English.
good. But
Let's read
Guinness
some more.
is number one.
But I
Tastes like
try
soap
not to
to me.
drink beer. Too many carbs.
Yeah, I've kind of given
Yeah,
it up.
I
I don't like beer.
All right, let's read some more. Max Reddick says Mehdi Hassan is an evil person.
Oh my God, he's a lunatic.
He is defending the government on the Twitter files, arguing semantics, saying the government simply pointed out to Twitter that people were breaking their rules.
Okay,
Insane.
He's just not. He's not an honest broker of conversation.
But none of these people are.
He's just not honest.
They're just none of these people are.
Yeah.
He's been in the news pretty heavily the
So
last week.
can I just talk about that just for a quick second? So it's taken me a lot of work to really get it into my mind that some people have absolutely nothing of substance to add to a conversation. And in fact, even listening to them is a kind of cognitive poison. It's like a slow epistemic punch in the head.
Oh my gosh, I get this thing. Sometimes people will be talking, right? And they'll say right at the end of the sentence. And I have to turn the video off when it's happening because I'm like, I'm not going to get brainwashed and it's talking like that.
Right?
All right.
Right.
All right. Max also says, Tim, I know you don't like to say when guests are coming on, but would you mind breaking that rule once and let us know when the serfs are coming on? I need to see that guy get pressed. So, what's that guy's name?
Lance.
Lance?
Yeah.
I mean, he tweets at me and I say, come on the show, because I always do. Like, whenever a leftist tweets at me or something, I'll be like, bro, you're welcome to come on the show and have a conversation.
So that's okay. So that's vital. And that's piggybacking off what you said. When people with whom you have a disagreement, like I've had a disagreement with Matt Walsh. I invited him to a conversation. Of course, he doesn't respond. I think that's one of the things you have going for you. If someone disagrees with you, I've always heard you say in the past, we'd love to have a conversation.
And then 97% of leftists ignore it or lie or turn it into a drama moment.
100%. And they say, Tim doesn't talk to people he disagrees with, right? I get that constantly. Well, why don't you go on left-wing media? Well, because I'm not invited on left-wing media.
We invited one guy on the show and he publicly says, I'll do it. And then privately goes, I'm not going on your show. And then he takes it and turns it into a segment where he's like, Tim Pool is scared to debate me and all this stuff. And I'm like,
so
okay,
there you go. I mean, but that's their tactic.
Right.
It's a woke tactic.
But this dude from the Serfs tweeted at me and I said, come on the show. And he was like, are you serious? Hell yeah. And I'm like, awesome, dude. I look forward to it. Like, you're allowed to have your opinions, man. And we'll talk about them. We've had Destiny, the omniliberal, on a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't like him. They disagree with him. He gets things wrong or whatever. But I'm like, I think Destiny's great. And he's going to be here Saturday, too.
Yeah, you want to hear something totally crazy? I am in Romania giving talks, doing all this stuff, and I'm like walking on a back road in the middle of freaking nowhere. And this is a totally true story. And this woman comes running up to me and says, oh my God, I saw you on Destiny. In
Really?
the middle, yeah. In the middle of nowhere in some village in Romania.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to tell
Impressive.
him that story when I see him.
All right. Oh, snap. It's Dave says, Luke, liquor stores stayed open because people who drink on the daily, if COVID didn't kill them, the DTs would have.
Yep.
Quitting drinking cold is worse than the needle. Your liver goes in complete shock.
Absolutely. Yep. Totally right. I'm not disagreeing with you, but the optics were still bad when the government was shutting down mom and pop businesses.
And churches.
But
man.
liquor stores were okay. And I understand there's medical reasons. That's how addictive some of this stuff is.
The church thing, to me, is the most egregious because it's the First Amendment.
Yeah.
It is like the most vital for us to experience life as we understand
100%.
it. And they shut churches down. I mean, that blew my mind. That's crazy. All right. We'll read some more. Wrath of Paul says the Bud Light fiasco only distracts us from the bigger issues that actually kill our freedom, such as the impending collapse of the petrodollar and the implementation of CBDCs around the world. Well, my view is not so simple on the petrodollar. I think it's actually I think the petrodollar is dying. It's been dying for a decade plus.
Yeah, if you see the curve, it's going down.
And Donald Trump's view, this is my personal view. I could be totally wrong. I got to ask the guy. But I think he sees this and he says, if we don't secure our borders, if we don't bring back manufacturing, if we don't get the American people back to work, when the petrodollar falls, we're done. And the Democrats were like, no, Trump, you're wrong. We should destroy the planet before the petrodollar falls. And so even though it's still going to fall, they're like, war in Ukraine at any cost. And now we got those Pentagon leaks, which, assuming that are real, shows that Russia actually ain't losing. That Ukrainian air defense forces are going to be depleted by the end of May, that the money we just sent to Ukraine is not enough, and that only around 8% of Russian troops that have been reported have actually died. So when they say 200,000, the numbers from these leaks, 17.
That I haven't heard.
Now, the argument is that it's propaganda and the numbers are manipulated. And the language and the context is all manipulated, perhaps.
Has there been any statement from the Pentagon if it's true or false?
Well, according to the military analysts, the people pretty much speaking for the Pentagon, they're like, yeah, everything here released is true, but they just faked the numbers here for this specific reason, which is very convenient to our official story. That's what they're going with here. But there's a lot of other things going around. I was talking about this in my YouTube video today, specifically with China brokering a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has just called for the end of the Yemen war, which is a proxy war. They're bringing the Sunnis and Shiites together. There's a big move here against the dollar here. And this is going directly against Israel and Americans' foreign policy in the Middle East, which is going to be some very significant ramifications for.
I'm reading this here super chat about Ian, and I think Ian's right. Duncan Chestnut says, Ian landed a 20 here. Apology is not enough. Make them an example. Going woke will collapse your company, not just inconvenience it. And you know what? I think that's actually a decent point. What I was saying earlier is that if they apologize, then we go out and we buy as much of their product as possible, because What we want people to see is we want all of the analysts to be like, well, when they did this ad campaign, their stock collapsed and their sales collapsed. When they apologized for it, they made $1 billion.
So I don't understand. Why would we want to punish them for apologizing?
It's not about apologizing. It's that if they don't, well, so that's what he's saying. Apology's not enough. Make him an example. My view is, if they don't apologize, then I hope they completely collapse.
I guess
because then the message is...
Oh, that I'm 100% fine with. But if they apologize, then apologizing for doing something wrong should be rewarded. But you shouldn't do it. But you shouldn't do... Aristotle actually says, sorry, but you shouldn't do a bad thing to feel remorse. You should feel remorse only once you've done a bad thing. Sorry?
If someone walks up to somebody and just punches them and knocks them on the ground and then stands there and goes, sorry, I'm not buying it, bro. I'm not going to buy your beer. You just deck that guy. Like, no. The apology is not enough in that situation.
This is different.
They just smeared Dylan Mulvaney. They made a fool of him, and they wrecked their brand. Yeah. So they deserve to be dragged for this.
Well, let's make it a little different. A group of people are standing in a big circle, and there's a guy named Bush, and then another guy standing next to him, and everyone's yelling. So the Bush guy goes, all right, I'll please these people, and just punches the dude as hard as he can, like you described. However, everyone starts booing. And then the guy's like, what's happening? Why are you booing me? I thought this is what you wanted. And they were like, we don't want you to do this. And now we're going to take you down. And he goes, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't think he's actually sorry. I think he's scared. Yeah. And I think when he then yells out to everyone, I am scared of you, please stop, it sends a message to every other corporation. If you want to see your net worth plummet by $4 billion, play that game.
So for you, correct me if I'm wrong, this Bush thing is kind of like a line in the sand. And this is where we can actually do something to make a substantive change.
Well, I'll be honest. Dylan Mulvaney is a product, as Vivek Ramaswamy said in a rather brilliant fashion. We thought the AI monster we would have to deal with is going to be a robot with laser eyes, but it's Dylan Mulvaney. It's the manipulation young people are experiencing at the hands of social media. And so it's not so much a line in the sand. When the story dropped, I didn't care. When I first saw the story that Dylan Mulvaney was being sponsored by Bud Light, I went, well, how about that? But when Kid Rock then fired at a bunch of Bud Light, I said, okay, I will do a short segment about this. And so it wasn't even a main segment for me. And then I got 1.5 million views. Whoa. And I said, okay, people have rallied around this idea and begun a boycott. And then Travis Tritt came out later. An event got canceled. And I said, this might be the moment people actually decide I can do some good here. Yeah. And so with that, I said, okay, let's follow the story and see what's happening. Now that we're seeing real economic consequences, for me, it's opportunity. It is finally we have a $4 billion get woke, go broke, and everyone is piling on. And then the media started attacking me, and I said, over target.
Can I just, if I may, put in a plug for my two passions? So Star Trek has been destroyed. Star Trek Discovery has been destroyed by woke madness. It's turned the show into a living cesspool. Doctor Who, the last 2 seasons, have been utterly destroyed. And I would like to add, if I may, I would like apologies for destroying the franchise for those, from both the BBC, destroying Terry Nation's work, if you're destroying Star Trek. So please add those to your list. I canceled my Paramount.
Yeah, Star Trek was it's one of my favorites. Next Generation, of course, Deep Space Nine, of course. And the first problem I had is they only do prequels, so boring, and then they get woke, go broke. So it's unfortunate, but
the prequel thing didn't bother me, but the woke arc, the woke story, everything about it was intersect. I couldn't stand it. It's destroyed the franchise.
All right, let's read some more. We got Insane Redneck. He says, regarding encryption, my brother just finished his time in the Army and just started work as a fort guard. He told me the DoD has classes for staff purely for the sake of bypassing VPNs. Unsurprising. Brandon Allen says, look at Luke rocking that cowboy hat based LARP.
I'm not LARPing. This is what I always wear.
He's making a joke.
I know, the FBI.
All right, let's see. What do we got? DL says, chickens with pew-pews. You're not taking the eggs this time. Quick, someone meme that. Side note, ever think of quick access app with sub that includes all your sub-based media for one low monthly price using access code? The app's done. The issue is it's really hard to get an app on the App Store for iTunes. But I think the Android app is going up really soon. And this means that you can log in and get access to all of the content, and it'll be really easy to navigate, and really excited for it. Super cool.
I have to say, your I'm just watching this now. Boy, your viewers are really thoughtful. Some of these comments are just fantastic.
Comments are incredible. I'm always in the comment section, always commenting as well.
The comments are really thoughtful.
But we get corrections in real time too.
Yeah.
Like we say something wrong, I can see it, and I'm like, oh, hey guys, someone just pointed out, like we've gotten guns wrong.
And do you say, hey, I made a mistake?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what differentiates you from, right?
I mean, just think about how silly it would be if someone super chats, you said the name of the gun wrong, it was actually this, and then I went, well, I don't care. I'm not correcting. Like
Right.
they're literally listening
Right.
to each other,
Right.
and they know I'm wrong.
Right.
The only thing I can do is be like, I got that one wrong.
Yeah, so you have a good audience. That's good. That's really good.
Smart people posting smart comments.
They listen. There's
I read
a
every
big difference in a crowd that
That's
just
excellent.
watches for kind of in the background and people that really listen to the stuff, the
Yeah.
content. These people listen.
Here's a good one. Miguel D says, I'm a staunch conservative, but I'm sounding more like Bernie Sanders every day. Billionaires are the problem. They own the corrupt media, big tech, and pay off the politicians.
Is it billionaires or is it money that's the problem?
No, it's neither. It's not even billionaires. Elon Musk's a billionaire. The problem is corruption. They're bad people exist. You know, look, a bad guy who's poor can go murder a bunch of people. A bad guy who's very wealthy can cause massive destruction culturally and politically. It's still just bad people doing bad things. You know, Elon Musk is, you know, I got my criticisms of him. You can talk about his deference to China or to whatever degree that is. He denies it. But then you can talk about buying Twitter and taking the W off the sign and then painting it white because the landlord complained. Like,
that was great.
He's a funny guy and he's doing good things.
I do think the value of wealth hoarding is a problem. You really shouldn't be valuable to not spend your money. That doesn't make any sense. Currency is supposed to, like a current, move.
This guy playing with words over here.
Inflation fixes that
Currency,
problem.
currency.
Yeah, or deflating currency, something like that.
Well, this is why they do negative interest rates. You know, they want to try and get you to remove your money from bank accounts and go spend it or something. The whole modern monetary theory, I think, is a big corrupt nightmare.
It's so crazy that people that have billions just sit with it in a bank account at 2% interest, and then they're just like, they're richer, they make more money than I do.
I'm bullish on Bitcoin.
All right. What is this? Barker Lewis Can't Chew says, okay. Vivek on his podcast with Bill Burr talked about using and promoting the FBI not reform it. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, for sure he is. That's why you should be following his work.
I think there's a degree of hidden agenda to a certain extent with Vivek, but I mostly think that he means it. He knows what he's talking about. And when I talked to him about his story, about how he got involved, basically he ran a multi-billion-dollar company.
It was a great interview.
He got attacked by woke people. It pissed him off because
Woke Inc. is a wonderful book for people who haven't read it.
I think he's emotionally slighted by the fact that he said, sure, I'll write a statement, did, and they went, it wasn't good enough. And then they resigned, and he's like, you F with me, you get the horns, you know what I mean?
And I think he's going to play ball with the military-industrial complex. He's been pretty straightforward that he's going to be a different guy after 8 years in there, and that's why, because he will decide where the bombs fall.
I don't know about that.
He's the real deal.
All I
He's
can
like
say
Obama,
is,
man.
I think he's more like a right-wing Andrew Yang, but I think he'd run circles around Andrew Yang.
Where he's talking about a war with the cartels. The CIA is not going to be happy with that.
Those are two of my favorite people, by the way.
I've been thinking about the cartels. What do we do about that? Like, do we mobilize the full force of the American military and go?
That's what he wants to do. That's his
do.
proposal. That's his
That's
plan.
what he wants to
like
do.
declare war on Mexico and work with their government, but invade the country.
Becoming a narco state.
Like, if they're letting cartels run their country, we have no choice but to take control and seize the land. I mean, I would even consider taking it if they're not going to govern and they're just going to let them attack us.
That is
All right.
another conversation. That's a huge conversation.
Wait until you learn about government, Ian.
Let's read some more. We got KCB who says, Tim, I do share your videos occasionally if I find them profound on Facebook, and none of them get any reactions. It's impossible that no one would give it a like, even if they don't watch. Your content is being hidden by Facebook. Can confirm. Now, what are you going to do about it? We started posting more and more onto Facebook because it is a platform we should be using to get access to more people. And we put them on Rumble as well. I actually beginning to think about uploading, to Twitter. I think Twitter is an avenue that's not being explored properly right now. With Twitter Blue, you can actually upload, what is it, like a couple hours or something? Is that what they're doing? I don't know.
Oh, it's a long time, yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe we need to just run the Timcast IRL channel like we do for Instagram and just start producing more and more content for it. All right, let's see what we got here. Jomis says, I install steam boilers for a living. Beers after a really dirty one brings the guys together. Just saying, it's not all evil, gents. More morale matters. No, that's why I said I like beer. I think beer's totally fine. I'm not going to drink it, but I understand why people do.
Totally.
I mean, and I actually like Blue Moon, but I haven't had one in a really long time.
I really try not to drink. I don't know. You don't drink, right?
No.
I try not to drink at all. I just love drinking. I just find it so enjoyable. But I'm trying to cut down on my carbs and my wheat. Like, so no sugars and no wheat. Or minimal,
Smart man.
So, yeah, and I feel better when I'm at a better weight, I think this healthy at every size is BS. But there is something about, some minimal diet, cutting sugar and minimizing alcohol. Although I will say, I went from gin and tonic to half gin, half tonic, double gin to quadruple gin, a half tonic, and that's been working out for me. And then I don't have anything else.
Yeah, just replace the beer with beef liver. Just have a bunch of beef liver with the boys.
Well, it's hard alcohol. I think is better for it. It's like that movie from I think it was like the 80s where they're shooting into the house. The vampires are in the house. They're shooting in the house, and the bullets aren't hurting the vampires, even though they're hitting them. But it's making holes in the barn.
The sun's coming through.
Yeah, and the sun's coming through and it's burning the vampires. That's what alcohol to me is. It's the sugar.
Oh,
it's the sugar that gets you.
Same with
All
the
right,
wheat.
let's,
Breaks down into sugar.
Let's grab one more idea. Chris Mendila. Is that what it says? Mendela. Billionaires don't keep their money in their bank accounts. They invest in companies and stocks. Most of these billionaires, like Elon, have very little liquid cash. Most of their worth is from stocks. Particularly Elon. Everyone says he's worth $200 billion, but that's just stock in Tesla. He can't do anything with that. What they can do is take loans against their stock, and then they have a ton of money, and then they can cash out their stock when they're allowed to, and then pay back loans and things like that.
And pay a hefty tax bill, which
That's
he has.
right.
Yeah,
He
paid a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you really like it, because that's the most powerful way for podcasts to grow is word of mouth. Head over to timcast.com, become a member, because we're going to have an uncensored members-only show coming up in about 10 minutes. And if you join the Discord, you can get access to actually calling into the show after 6 months of membership, or at least $25. Then we screen callers and we choose a few every night. So we just started doing this recently, and it's the most fun thing, I think, all day. So do that, timcast.com. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL on Instagram and I think everywhere. And you can follow me personally at Timcast. Peter, do you want to shout anything out?
Peter Boghossian. I'm on Twitter at Peter Boghossian, Boghossian. I have a YouTube channel. I think if you just put in Peter Boghossian, it will come up, and have a nonprofit, National Progress Alliance, and we fight wokeness and promote free speech and open discourse full time. So appreciate the same thing, liking our channel, subscribing, and sharing. So
How do you spell that again?
Boghossian.
Peter, thank you so much for coming on. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/wearechange. I started going live sporadically, randomly, doing little talks. If you want to check that out, definitely subscribe. I don't know when. I don't have a schedule, so just make sure you're subscribed there. I'm also going to be doing a members-only meetup this Thursday in Austin, and if you want to find out about that, check out lukeunfiltered.com, lukeunfiltered.com, and I'm really excited to meet some of you guys here in Austin.
I think Luke and I may be doing a video this week.
Yeah, a live one.
It's going to be live, you guys, on Luke's channel, We Are Change. It was really fun listening to you guys tonight. Peter, thanks for coming, man. That was really great.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I want to say I really enjoy the spirited discourse. And I think one of the reasons that your podcast has been successful, you and Rogan, is because you do have these kind of, and I like it when people tell me I'm wrong. I find that to be in that Tim Urban's book, What's Our Problem? Like, that's the higher level. That's what you want to do. Like, that's a reason that cements and glues friendships, is people say, they call you out and you don't take it personally. I don't take it personally. I ask you a question. You answer a question. I ask you a question. So I think that there's something really lovely about that. And that's what cements relationships.
Here's
That's what we should all be doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we also have Mr. Duprea on the microphone.
No camera, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, no camera, guys.
High
Sorry.
energy Serge in the house.
Yeah, but I'm just hanging out.
All right, everybody. Head over to timcast.com for the uncensored show, and we will see you all in a few minutes.